The girl had just turned 8 when she was thrown into the palace by her family to be a consort for the Empress. And what she faced was scheming and fighting against the 3,000 handsome men of the harem for favor. Just as she spent 4 years to finally win the Empress's heart, she was framed as a traitor out of jealousy and ultimately sentenced to death. This was supposed to be the fate of a female supporting character in a romance novel. But a modern girl transmigrated into her body the day before she entered the palace. What kind of shitty luck was it to transmigrate into such a brutally tragic cannon fodder role? In the book's Eastern continent, the people here are protected by the true dragon and all possess divine powers. Among them exist the 7 great families, whose power and divine abilities are second only to one person and above all others. Generation after generation, they must send their children into the palace to serve as consorts. And this little cannon fodder was the only useless character among the 7 great families who couldn't do anything. Right after transmigrating, she encountered the girl's scumbag father, Lenin Rulon. How dangerous. If you dare to step into the Rulon family home again, I will tear you to pieces. That's right, not only was Shanai a powerless good-for-nothing, she was also an unwelcome, illegitimate daughter. In the Rulon family, there was no one more suitable to appease the Empress. On the day of the grand wedding, the Empress gritted her teeth, looking at the Rulon family. They had sent an 8-year-old child, but she also felt sympathy for her and didn't punish her, only ordering her to go back and rest. But before this, because the Empress was dissatisfied with the Rulon family constantly delaying the marriage, Her Majesty was displeased and deliberately arrived 2 hours late, leaving her to kneel below the high platform. So, just as Shanai was about to get up, her legs were so numb that she fell straight into the Empress's arms. The Empress caught her and asked with a concerned look, "Are you all right?" The consorts on the high platform watched this scene with gloomy faces. Shanai came to her senses, immediately got up to distance herself from the Empress, declined the Empress's kindness, and took her leave with a bow. She tried hard to walk steadily, forcing herself to walk back to her chambers alone. The next day, Shanai woke up groggily from the wooden platform, but her dowry maid was sound asleep on the soft, large bed. She was an Empress's consort, after all, yet she had to put up with a maid's attitude. But it was still better than being looked down upon in the Rulon family. However, she had caused such a commotion at the wedding yesterday. In the novel, all the consorts were deeply in love with the Empress, even killing each other for her. And yet, she had attracted the Empress's attention at the wedding yesterday. If the Empress's interest continued to lie with her, the other consorts would definitely become jealous. It seemed her only choice was to become a perfect, unremarkable child. After all, a crying child gets the milk, while a well-behaved child gets no affection. As long as she acted like an obedient and sensible good girl, the Empress would surely lose interest in her. Then she could live a life free from worldly conflict. Just then, the maid finally woke up from her large bed. "This bed is such a mess. Miss, you are not worthy of sleeping on it. Shanai couldn't be bothered with her. Since you're awake, help me dress and do my hair." In the original story, after Shanai became a consort, she had this maid severely whipped and expelled from the palace. This incident was then exaggerated by other consorts and reported to the Empress. But after the Empress investigated the matter, she chose to protect her and doted on her even more. Thus, Shanai became a thorn in the side of all the consorts, and it was the beginning of her nightmare. The maid suddenly tightened Shanya's belt, pulling her back to reality with a jolt. "There, is that good enough? I'm a middle due. You can go. Leave the palace directly." Although she wanted to live a peaceful life, she wasn't so cowardly as to let a maid bully her. Besides, she would only get in the way here. The maid, of course, was unwilling, shouting loudly, "I was sent by the Rulon family, Mississippi. You have no right to make me leave. So you're a spy. Then, since I am now Her Majesty's consort, I am a member of the imperial family. As my maid, you should also be loyal to the imperial family. But every other word you say is that you're from the Rulon family." The maid frantically tried to explain, but just then, someone from outside the door announced that Consort Shue had arrived. Before Shanai could invite him in, the person outside pushed the door open and entered. "Greetings, little sister. I am Zhaoyun." On her first day in the palace as an 8-year-old consort, the girl was schooled by a male consort of the domineering Empress. Facing the uninvited guest, Shanai, adhering to her principle of living a peaceful life, bowed humbly. "Greetings, Consort Shue. I am Consort Chao, Shanai. Forgive me for not coming out to greet you." Consort Chow was the title the Empress gave her, probably meaning she should live out her days peacefully like a weed. After entering the palace, consorts lose their family names. However, not just anyone could take the Empress's surname. So now they all had given names, but no surnames. Shanai thought for a long time, but couldn't recall which family this consort Shui was from, what divine powers he had, or any impression of him at all. Perhaps he was also a cannon fodder character. Zhao Yun came in with guns blazing, mocking her. I came today to give you, a low-ranking consort, some pointers. Shanai didn't expect him to be so blunt about his intentions, and she listened to him ramble on and on. If she were really an 8-year-old, she might have been fooled by him, but she wasn't, so she obediently lowered her head and accepted his teachings. Zhao Yun didn't expect this little girl to be so composed. Thinking of another way to assert his dominance, his eyes scanned the room and landed on the maid Yu. He began to ask pretentiously, "Are you and this maid on good terms? Speaking of which, I have a favor to ask of you. Your Highness, please speak freely. Actually, my palace has been short-staffed recently." Shanai knew exactly what he was up to the moment he opened his mouth. Isn't he just trying to steal my maid? But isn't this a coincidence? How thoughtful of you. In that case, Your Highness, how about you take this maid? Since it's a sincere offer from my little sister, it would be rude of me to refuse. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone, his goal was achieved. Zhao Yun prepared to head back. Before leaving, he even slapped Shanai with his cloak, making her so angry that a curse almost slipped out. Can't be helped. Short people have no rights. Just as Zhao Yun stepped out, he saw that consort Xian, Jialan, was also there. Jialan immediately mocked him. How absurd. Zhao Yun looked displeased. He didn't dare to provoke Jialan, so he could only take it out on Shanai. Consort Chow, what is the meaning of this? I'm already in your palace. How can you let another guest in? Don't take advantage of your young age to be rude. Shanai could only suffer in silence, lowering her head to apologize. If you're going to cause trouble, at least find a decent reason. Didn't the servant fail to announce my arrival? She didn't expect Jialan to speak up for her. Zhao Yun still couldn't act tough in front of Jialan. Furious and embarrassed, he pointed at Shanai. You humiliated me like this today. I won't let this go. Then he stormed off. Shanai lowered her head, waiting for Jialan's reaction. I originally came to see what kind of person you are. Now it seems I understand. Shanai didn't know what he had understood. Lowering her head to apologize was never wrong. I'm terrified. You did nothing wrong. Why apologize? So, what do you want me to do? Shanai was so frustrated she wanted to scream. Don't see me out, and don't be an eyesore in front of me in the future. After saying that, he shut the door without waiting for Shanai to speak. This group of people was finally gone. Shanai finally got to sleep on her own big bed as she wished. The moment she relaxed, she felt sleepy. Just as she was about to take a nap, a maid knocked on the door. Consort Chow, we are here to help you prepare for bed. Shanai sat up abruptly. How did they know I was going to sleep? Feeling a little uneasy, she told them to come in. A group of maids entered and skillfully began to dress her up. This is a bit too festive. So she voiced her opinion to the sharp-faced maid among them. But the maid replied, this is prepared for your and Her Majesty's first night. Hearing this was like a bolt from the blue for Shanai. She watched them leave in a daze. What the hell? I'm only 8 years old. What first night? Nothing happened yesterday, so I thought it was over. I didn't expect this kind of delayed attack. Although in the original story, the Empress only treated Shanai like a child pet. The ones who gave her headaches were the crazy male leads. Zhao Yun was just child's play. Shanai climbed onto the bed, trembling, not wanting to think about it. She'd take a nap first. Consort Chow, please wash up first. Shanai just wanted to bang her head on the pillow and die. Meanwhile, the Empress was still sitting on the dragon throne, reflecting that she shouldn't have been so rude yesterday. Even if the other party was a child, she shouldn't have been so surprised. Just showing appropriate concern would have been enough. Although she is young, she is still Lingyin Rulan's child. That guy Rulan is fully capable of training a child into a spy and sending her into the palace. She had already placed spies in Huashu Palace to monitor the girl's every move. However, her body is very thin. She doesn't really seem like an assassin. Just then, the sharp-faced maid came to report. The maids have prepared Consort Chow for the first night. Was there anything unusual? Her Highness's body is covered in scars. The scars are shallow, but have not yet healed. The Empress pondered for a long time, then suddenly stood up. Huashu Palace. I want to see her with my own eyes. Tonight was the wedding night of the girl and the domineering Empress. Shanai sat opposite the Empress, anxiously watching her pour her own drink. Although she thought about having a drink with her, she was promptly stopped by the Empress. The Empress watched Shanai just sitting there, so she personally served her a full plate of pastries and fruits. Is she punishing me? The original owner's stomach was already weak from long-term starvation. But you can't refuse food from the Empress. With fatalistic determination, she tentatively picked up a grape-like fruit. She popped it directly into her mouth, but it was unexpectedly bitter. Shanai tried to spit it out. No, swallow it. No, until the juice choked her and she sprayed it out. The Empress's expression changed drastically. From her perspective, it was clear Shanai was spitting blood. Summon the imperial physician immediately. Someone has poisoned the food. Shanai reached out to stop her, but she couldn't speak because she was choking. Hurry up and say something. Otherwise, that person... In a moment, a handsome blonde man rushed in. Who has the audacity? How dare you try to poison someone while I am here? Assassinate Her Majesty? If Shanai had to choose one male lead she was most afraid of, it would be the noble consort with platinum blonde hair. Shanai stared blankly at the man before her, so scared she wet herself. Don't be fooled by his harmless appearance. He is the strategic man who, while the Empress was recuperating, rose to become her right-hand man, noble consort Malanai Yalin. A breathless Malanai saw the situation in the room and was stunned. Your Majesty, are you all right? I'm fine, but her... The Empress pushed the trembling Shanai forward. So there's someone else in the room besides you. Shanai couldn't control herself. It's because of your menacing gaze, Your Highness. Shanai didn't dare to look him in the eye again and hurriedly bowed her head. Forgive me, noble consort. I ate the plum fruit without greeting Your Highness first. No matter. It's normal to forget in a moment of panic. Malanai moved closer to her. Shanai thought he was about to say, beheading or poison, which do you prefer? And became more and more frightened. It was as if she was being tightly coiled by a platinum blonde snake, unable to breathe. But Malanai just patted her head. You don't look very old. You probably found the purple sweet fruit too bitter. He's surprisingly gentle. Malanai stood up and explained to the Empress that this kind of fruit is not suitable for children. Shanai secretly observed them. For a moment there, she really thought she was going to be swallowed alive. But Malanai is a strategic male lead because he wasn't originally human. He is a dragon from the Chiyun Jiajing clan with super strong healing divine powers. This matter is highly confidential, which is why he uses an eye patch to cover his red eyes. Great. Now she's added another capital offense to her list. Shanai, would you like to eat something else? The Empress's sudden question broke her train of thought. She hurriedly refused. Thank you for your grace, but it's getting late. Hearing her say this, the Empress remembered it was time for bed. She gestured for the maids to prepare. Shanai watched them quickly and neatly tidy the room and even thoughtfully dim the lights. She was really about to pass out from exhaustion. She was so sleepy, she could barely keep her eyes open. Why isn't Malanai leaving yet? And Malanai, seeing her drowsy appearance, directly lifted Shanai into his arms. She looked at him, bewildered. Is he going to pretend his hand slipped and drop me to my death? Malanai suddenly tossed Shanai onto the soft bed. Consort Chow, you seem very tired. Shanai stared blankly as they approached. What are they doing? Malanai and the Empress each grabbed one of her ankles. It looked like they were about to take off her shoes. What is going on? Why does even that guy Malanai seem so familiar with me? Are these two crazy? Shanai couldn't figure it out. It was too absurd. She quickly spoke up to stop them. Thank you, but I'll do it myself in the future. The Empress and the noble consort glanced at each other. The farce was finally over. After leaving, Malanai strode forward. He also didn't understand the situation. What on earth did I just do? Her Majesty was there just now. That's why I carried her to the bed. I can't believe I personally helped another consort take off her shoes. Besides that, there was something else very strange. When she first saw my eyes, her face was clearly full of fear. But not long after, it was as if she got bored and started to get drowsy. Although she didn't burst into tears, which saved some trouble, how did she get used to it so quickly? Is it just because she's still a child? In the dead of night, Shanai was still silently cheering herself on that don't fall asleep. Absolutely do not fall asleep, because she slept horribly. She would rather die than put her leg on the Empress while sleeping. Suddenly, the Empress quietly sat up. Shanai turned over and pretended to be asleep. The Empress looked at the sleeping girl beside her and gently stroked her hair. Poor child. With her back to the Empress, Shanai slowly opened her eyes. This was the sympathy that made the original Shanai live and die for. But she didn't need it. Even without your pity, I can live well on my own. Waking up the morning after the wedding night, the Empress was already gone. Shanai hadn't dared to close her eyes and had pulled an all-nighter. She looked haggard when she got up. The bun-haired maid saw she wasn't looking well and brought her some purple sweet fruit juice to freshen her up. She wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. But the maid was so sincere, it was hard to refuse that then, can you add some honey to it? As soon as she said it, the maid stared at her, dumbfounded, then suddenly bolted out of the room. Not only did she run out, but she kept yelling, "What do I do? What do I do?" This is so embarrassing. Shanai thought to herself that I used to be someone who drank triple shot Americanos. Now I need honey in my fruit juice. But is honey really something to make such a big fuss about? After finishing the juice, amidst the strange atmosphere in the palace, Shanai jumped off the bed. She had something important to do today. After all, with so much scheming in the harem, she never knew what might happen in the future. To be prepared, she had to make sure she could sneak out of the palace in a crisis, like a doggy door or some other kind of escape route. She wasn't in a hurry to find one, but who could have known that yesterday she would accidentally see Molinai's secret? Although last night passed peacefully, it's not that retribution won't come. It's just not time yet. So, the tiny figure walked out of the palace gates, one step at a time. The maids behind her were practically melting from her cuteness. The wandering Shanai didn't know how long she had walked. As expected of the imperial palace, not a single doggy door. However, Shanai unexpectedly found a large tree big enough for her to lie down on. Although she didn't find an escape route, how could she miss such a beautiful view? The sudden sound of footsteps put Shanai on alert. Is it Molinai's people coming to kill her? Run! The person behind her didn't expect her to just bolt without asking. He watched as Shanai stumbled and fell to the ground. Shanai trembled as she got up, looking behind her. I need to calm down. The person might not be here to kill me. Get up quickly. But her body simply, and the person who had been following her walked up to her. It was Jalon. Fear made it impossible for Shanai to calm down. Seeing Jalon raise his hand, she suddenly remembered he possessed the divine power of fire. She didn't want to be burned to death like this. Don't kill me. The girl had just become a consort, and on the second day, she was about to be burned to death by the domineering Empress's male consort. Jalon looked at Shanai impatiently. What are you saying? What nonsense are you talking? This was embarrassingly awkward to the extreme. So the end of the last video was all just Shanya's fearful imagination. Jalon also found it absurd. He sat down with a plop that, I'm not going to kill you. Besides, why would I kill you? As he said this, afraid Shanai wouldn't believe him, he threw all the weapons on his body onto the ground in front of her. I asked this better? I have no weapons on me now. Shanai nodded, sniffling. Jalon thought he had scared her just now. He felt a little nervous. Were you very scared just now? Huh? Shanai was confused. What are you thinking? Why aren't you talking? Shanai quickly stood up and bowed respectfully. Consort Xian, I'm truly terrified. This isn't how things were supposed to go. Jalon got nervous again, stammering, don't be terrified. Actually, I came today to apologize to you. Huh? Apologize for what? When Zhaoyan took your maid, I didn't stop him. But don't worry, I've already brought her back. She should be in your palace now. Ah, thank you. Shanai was screaming internally. Why did you have to bring her back? Just then, the maids who had been looking for Shanai appeared. Consort Xiao, are you all right? Are you hurt? Shanai remembered she had fallen and gotten her clothes dirty. They would have to hand wash them in this cold weather. She whispered an apology. I'm sorry. The sharp-faced maid's nose tingled, and she hugged Shanai tightly, comforting her that everything was fine now, and thanked Consort Xian for helping to look for her. Only then did Shanai realize that Consort Xian was here because her own maids had asked him to. She turned and bowed. That I'm sorry to have worried your highness. It was my fault. Jalon casually picked up his weapons from the ground. Suddenly, he squatted down again and held out his hand to Shanai. What does this mean? Shanai didn't understand. Does he mean for me to pick up the weapon from the ground and hand it to him? Jalon stared dumbfounded at her series of actions. That's not what I meant. He frantically apologized again that I wasn't asking you to do that. And I'm not angry at you. Anyway, thank you for helping me pick it up. Shanai was creeped out. What's wrong with him? Did he eat something bad? And why are you blushing? The scene remained awkward. Jalon awkwardly threw out a goodbye and turned to leave. Shanai was completely baffled. It was like he was a different person. As soon as she entered the palace gates, she saw an unfamiliar maid standing in the courtyard. Seeing her return, the maid rushed forward without a care, grabbing her clothes and shaking them. Consort Xiao, you really made me wait. Shanai was very annoyed and ordered her to let go. The sharp-faced maid also reacted, scolding, insolent. Who allowed you to touch her highness? But she didn't expect this strange maid to be quite arrogant. I am a maid by the noble consort side. You're just a minor consort. Shanai cut her off. What? Who do you serve? The strange maid impatiently pushed Shanai into the sharp-faced maid. The noble consort has ordered me to bring consort Chow to see him. Not only did you make me stand and wait for so long, but you are also so rude. If the noble consort finds out, do you think you'll get off easy? Shanya's face instantly darkened. What's coming has come. Shanai soaked in the bathtub, feeling gloomy about what she was about to face. The bun-haired maid looked back and thought she was drinking the bathwater. She earnestly told her to spit out quickly. Shanai was a little speechless. Although she was young, she wasn't that foolish. The maids beside her also nervously checked the flower petals in the water for any remaining toxins, clamoring to get Her Highness out of the water immediately. Shanai quickly opened her mouth to show them that neither the bathwater nor the flower petals had entered her mouth. I really didn't eat any of it. It was a misunderstanding. The sharp-faced maid outside heard the commotion and rushed in. Shisha, you are serving Her Highness. How can you not be more composed? Shisha turned her head defiantly and pointed to the other two maids. They were just as, you bunch of traitors. Listening to their bickering, Shanai felt anxious. The one she always saw first when she opened the door was Shuyan. The one who was always chirping was Shisha. In the original story, Shanai was either clinging to the Empress or busy fighting with other consorts, so there wasn't much description of the maids in her palace. There were only a few lines at the end, commenting on how cruel she was. Shuyan brought a bath towel, indicating that it was about time. But the biggest challenge now was Malanai. No matter what happened, she had to be extremely respectful. She hoped to get through it smoothly. Afterward, Shanai and her group followed the strange maid to Hualing Palace, where the noble consort lived. Just as they were about to enter, the strange maid turned and scolded Shisha and Shuyan, forbidding them from entering. Shisha stepped forward to argue with her, but the strange maid was full of arrogance, looking down on them for being a consort's maids. Letting them follow this far was already a great favor. Shanai turned back to offer a few words of comfort, but the strange maid yanked her over. Please hurry up. How long do you intend to make His Highness wait? Shisha and Shuyan watched her actions with trepidation. But then they thought about how Shanai was already powerless in the palace. Even if the other party was so crude and rude, there was nothing they could do. After entering, Malanai's personal maid, Fian, announced, Your Highness, the guest you invited has arrived. Shanai opened her mouth to greet him. Greetings, noble consort. I have brought Shanai Rolan. The strange maid interrupted directly. Malanai turned and slowly walked towards them. He suddenly reached out and grabbed the rude maid's hair. He pulled her close to him. What I clearly told you was to invite her over nicely. Can you explain why you brought Consort Chow over as if you were dragging a dog? Shanai looked at Malanai, who was not his usual gentle and refined self, and knew that he was furious right now. And the reason he was angry was, what did he just say? Fian stepped forward to remind him, Your Highness, I'm afraid this is inappropriate. There's a child watching. You might scare her. Malanai immediately let go. Fian handed him a handkerchief. How should we deal with her? Malanai thought about it seriously. Take her to the garden and deal with her. How scary. Malanai returned to his gentle image and apologized to Shanai for letting her see something she shouldn't have. I'm truly sorry. This wasn't the only thing Shanai shouldn't have seen. She bowed. It is I who was too late. My apologies, noble consort. You don't have to be so polite. I have prepared tea and snacks in the pavilion. Would you like to join me? Shanai could only maintain her smile. Which is scarier, the garden or the pavilion? 1 second the man was viciously pulling a maid's hair. The next he was smiling and inviting a little girl. For tea. Shanai smiled and accepted. Yes, noble consort. It seemed she had no choice but to enter this tiger's den. In the courtyard, Shanya's attention was drawn to a table full of sumptuous tea and snacks. They were all styles she had never seen before. Malanai saw her gluttonous look and chuckled that I don't know what children like to eat, so I was a little worried. But it's good that you seem to like them. Shanai bowed and expressed her thanks. Thank you for your kindness, Your Highness. But Malanai was really hard to figure out. Just now he was grabbing someone's hair, looking like a demon when he questioned her. Now he was all smiles, as if that demon wasn't him. Although he said it was because the maid was rude to Shanai, that he punished her, it shouldn't have been that severe. She must have done something else wrong. When Shanai came to her senses and looked at Malanai, she saw him smiling like a flower. I've always wanted to call you by your name. Thank you for allowing me to do so. Shanai was baffled. What did I agree to that? By the way, there's something I need to apologize to you for. After you and Her Majesty saw my eyes that day, you must have been very scared. Although I didn't mean to scare you. These red eyes are indeed frightening. You must have found them disgusting, yet you acted so calm. Here it comes. She had to be careful with this question. The reason Her Majesty was able to win his heart was because she accepted him for who he was. Then, as long as she acts like Her Majesty, I don't find them disgusting at all. Red eyes are no different from any other color. They're just human eyes. On the contrary, I made your highness worry. I should be the one apologizing to you. That should do it. She had already acted so gentle and virtuous. Please don't dwell on this anymore. As expected, Malanai smiled sweetly. I'm glad you don't mind. Then, Malanai awkwardly gestured with his hands, asking if he could pat her head. What? Pat who? Pat me? Shanai struggled to control herself. If your highness wishes to pat my head, please do. Malanai reached out and gently stroked her head. Shanai is so well-behaved. You even know how to apologize to people. But others are not as kind as you. Malanai looked into her eyes. I hope you can help me keep the matter of my eyes a secret. Of course, I will definitely keep my lips sealed, your highness. Malanai was completely relieved. He let go of her head and invited Shanai to go back to the palace with him for dinner. Faced with such a sumptuous and delicious meal, Shanai was no longer so formal. She picked up her chopsticks and started eating. It was so delicious it brought tears to her eyes. What was all that stuff she ate before? She originally thought she wouldn't be able to eat at the same table as Malanai and planned to just have a few bites and leave. Now, she only hated that this child's body couldn't eat the entire table. Malanai watched Shanya's adorable eating posture. Shanai is 8 years old this year, right? You're so pretty. Why don't you like to smile? As he said this, he reached out and touched her cheek. You'd surely look even prettier if you smiled, right? Shanai looked at his face and felt a chill. She stiffly twitched the corners of her mouth, forcing a childish smile. Malanai, satisfied, served her a piece of food, telling her to try it. Since the atmosphere was already so harmonious, could the food Malanai personally served her be poisoned? Shanai worriedly picked it up and stuffed it into her mouth. She didn't dare to chew, trying to swallow it directly, but a familiar sensation suddenly appeared. She started coughing violently. She was choking again. Malanai looked at her, at a loss. Shanai, are you all right? You look terrible. Shanya's words came out in spurts between coughs. Your Highness. No. Malanai. Jalon, hearing the commotion inside, suddenly burst through the door. It turned out they just seemed to be eating. Shanai stared at him blankly and hiccuped uncontrollably. Something is definitely wrong. He strode towards the culprit. He grabbed Malanai by the collar. What did you do to a child, you bastard? Shanai didn't expect that halfway through her meal, Jalon would rush in and grab the noble consort by the collar to question him. What on earth is he up to now? Just then, Jalon turned his head and saw Shanya's expression. This further convinced him that she was being bullied and that he had to seek justice for her. Malanai patted the spot Jalon had touched. If you hadn't burst in so rudely, she would be continuing to enjoy her meal right now. The word rude stepped on Jalon's tail. He gritted his teeth and stared at Malanai. Then, Malanai reached out and held Shanai in his arms, gently patting her back. Poor child, were you scared? There. It's all right now. Shanai didn't think of herself as a child. This feeling gave her the creeps. She thought Malanai must be crazy. What is he doing? Jalon's temper flared even more. Who do you think you are? What right do you have to hold her? Malanai flaunted her in front of him. You are of the same rank. You should address her as Consort Chow. This made Jalon want to burn him alive. Put her down. Malanai changed the subject, criticizing Jalon's etiquette, that you're acting so unruly here. It seems you really need an etiquette teacher. But since your head is empty, I, the noble consort, will have to personally instruct you. Seeing another argument about to start, Shanai interrupted them. Noble consort, I'm fine now. Please put me down. As soon as Shanai was put down, she immediately bowed respectfully. Thank you for your hospitality. It's getting late. I'll be taking my leave now. The moment Malanai agreed, Shanai immediately fled. She was so fast that Jalon didn't even have time to react. He hurriedly chased after her. Shanai hadn't even run out of Hualing Palace when Jalon called out to her, wait. She looked at Jalon, confused. Does Consort Xian have any other business? Are you really all right? Shanai didn't understand why he was asking this. I heard from the maids in your palace. Are you okay? He didn't do anything strange to you, did he? I'm fine. Thank you for your concern, your highness. I'd like to return to my palace now. Please excuse me. Jialan just stood there blankly, watching Shanai run off. He recalled the day he first met Shanai. When he returned to his palace, he was scolded by his own people that a little child's maid was stolen. And you just stood by and did nothing? Jialan immediately retorted, that's no ordinary child. She's from the Rilon family. She's still just an 8-year-old child. What 8 years old? 55 years old. The servant claimed he had personally gone to the Rilon family to confirm. The child was as thin as a bamboo stick, likely neglected for a long time, and might have even been abused. Jialan then understood. In a powerful and prestigious family like the Rilons, how could their precious daughter be served by only one maid? Afterward, he was fiercely threatened by his own servant to go apologize to Shanai and bring her maid back. He just didn't expect that as soon as he arrived at Huashu Palace, he would be asked by Shanya's maids to go look for their mistress. He finally found her, but the child ran as soon as she saw him. Not only did she run, but she also fell flat on her face. In the end, she even mistook him for a bad guy. But it was then that he realized how truly thin and small she was. And he felt utterly disgusted with himself for watching coldly as she was bullied. So, as Jialan reflected on all his actions, he finally understood. Even if the child disliked him, it was perfectly normal. On the other side, Malanai was also reflecting on every step that went wrong today. As the precious young daughter of the Rulon family, Shanai had also discovered his secret. He had called Shanai over today simply to ask her to keep a secret. He had even fully considered a child's palate when it came to the food. He had only done these things. Why did it feel like she was constantly on guard? And her overly mature attitude. Even though she was smiling so brightly, she was still constantly watching my expression. Malanai was quite satisfied with his performance today. Where did the problem lie? Was the food not to her taste? Just then, Fian came in to report the results of his investigation into Shanai. Previously, Malanai had sent people to investigate Shanai just in case. Perhaps her respectful appearance was just to deceive him. Your Highness, there is something very strange. In the Rilon family's residence, there are no traces of a little girl having lived there, because she's an illegitimate daughter. The girl had just turned 8 when she was sent to the palace to be a consort for the Empress. And every consort in the palace was captivated by the Empress's charm, not hesitating to kill each other to win her favor. Shanai lived in such an environment, as if walking on thin ice. Fian went to the Rulon family to investigate Shanai. Although the servants of the Rulon family all insisted that they had served consort chow, there were no traces of a child having lived within the residence. If she were the family's treasured daughter, it would be impossible for her belongings to disappear in an instant. It seems Lingyin Rulon completely ignored her. This would explain why the child is so cautious. Malanai couldn't imagine what kind of life Shanai had lived before. In the dead of night, Shanai shivered from the cold, walking alone back to her palace. She was freezing to death. It's all that damn noble consort's fault. How could he let a child walk back alone? She finally reached the door and knocked. The maids all came out to greet her. The inside was brightly lit that you're finally back. Come in quickly. Your Highness, are you all right? Shanai looked at them, hesitantly reaching out her hand. Shuyan grasped her hand. Your hand is so cold. The night is cold and dewy. They actually let our mistress come back alone. Shisha, let's go inside first. Afterward, Shanai was ushered back into the palace by the maids. Shanai felt that after seeing them, she seemed to feel a little more at ease. In the middle of the night, Shanai suddenly developed a fever. Her head was splitting. She didn't want to disturb the maids so late at night, so she fumbled her way out of bed to get the brazier. But she overestimated her physical condition. The moment she got out of bed, she couldn't stand and fell to the floor. In this state, she couldn't go near the stove. It's too dangerous. It's better to just endure tonight. It'll be fine once I fall asleep. After an unknown amount of time, Shanai vaguely heard someone talking beside her. Your Highness doesn't seem to have a common cold. It's likely she ate something wrong. Shanai was having trouble breathing. Could it be those pastries? No wonder her throat felt like it was being sliced by blades. Then doesn't that mean I ended up like this because of that guy Malanai? He's no help at all. Sooner or later, I'll stew him into dragon and phoenix soup. The angrier Shanai got, the more her head felt like it was going to explode. Someone save me. Shuyan frantically told Shisha to get the medicine. Everyone was frightened by Shanya's condition. Your Highness, you have to hold on. Don't pass out. I'm sorry. When Shanai woke up again, she vaguely felt someone beside her. Who is it? The Empress. Shanai somewhat resisted the Empress's touch. If you feel sorry, then get out quickly. Go do whatever you want, just don't come here. I'll be safe without you. The Empress ignored Shanya's struggles and held her in her arms, comforting her. There. It's all right. The monsters that made you uncomfortable are all gone. The little consort just wanted to be invisible after entering the palace, but she unexpectedly became the group's favorite. Even the domineering Empress joined in the jealous squabbles. On what was originally a very pleasant morning, if Jalon hadn't come to visit, Shanai would have been very happy. Jalon stood there awkwardly, wanting to ease the atmosphere. He tiptoed over and opened the window. The weather is particularly pleasant today. As soon as he opened the window, he heard the girl sneeze. Jalon slammed it shut again, but used too much force, shattering the vase next to the window. Shanai watched his series of actions speechlessly. Jalon dejectedly apologized to Shanai. After hearing Shanai say not to mind it and that she didn't care, he turned into a happy little peacock again. Then, Jalon considerately asked Shanai to tell him if there was anything she disliked or was afraid of. He could help her take care of it. Shanai couldn't believe her luck came so suddenly. In that case, Your Highness, could you please leave first? Jalon instantly looked like he was having a mental breakdown. Was he that disliked? As he was about to leave, the Empress happened to come to see her beloved consort. She asked the dejected Jalon, "What's wrong with that child?" "She told me to get out." Hearing this, the Empress quickly pointed to herself. Oh, I have to get out too." Although she was dying to say, "Get out right now," she wasn't bold enough to say it out loud. "It is Shanya's honor that your majesty could grace me with your presence." This differential treatment made Jalon seem even more pathetic. Shanai led the Empress to a seat in the main hall, but the Empress kept looking at her without speaking. Shanai understood. This expectant gaze meant she wanted her to speak first. Being sensible, she bowed her head. "I have received all of your gifts. Thank you for your majesty's grace." The Empress was indeed very happy to hear that, saying that this time was rushed and she would send better things next time. It's the evil of capitalism. Shanai politely declined the Empress's kind offer. After all, the palace is simple and unworthy of these treasures. She didn't expect these words to remind the Empress. She looked around at it is indeed a bit shabby. "Leave it to me to handle." Before Shanai could react to what she was going to handle, she saw the Empress take out a bag and tell her to open it. Inside were almond pastries, a specialty of the Western continent. She knew Shanai liked sweets, so she had specially ordered some to be shipped over. But this kind of affectionate pastry put more pressure on her than any reward. Shanai didn't understand what the Empress's purpose was in doing this. She smiled and thanked Her Majesty for her kindness. But the Empress caressed her cheek, regretting that she couldn't have been better to her. She then stood up and touched her forehead. "Good, the fever is gone. Do you often have nightmares?" Originally, Shanai remembered how she had struggled against the Empress's touch that night. She decided to go along with it. It gave her a good excuse. Unexpectedly, the Empress pulled her into an embrace. "If you have nightmares again in the future, just come find me." Such a warm embrace made Shanai let down her guard and feel sleepy. The Empress smiled and picked her up. "If you're sleepy, then sleep. Don't be afraid. I won't leave." After entering the palace, the little consort just wanted to live a quiet life free from worldly conflict. But unexpectedly, the Empress ignored her male consorts and doted on her alone, even shipping sweets for her from the Western continent from thousands of miles away and giving her the former noble consort's palace. Shanai looked at everything before her in disbelief. Could it be because of that day? "So, she just gave me a new palace?" I was trying to tell her not to send any more gifts. Shanai felt like she was doomed. The Empress doted on her so much. The news must have spread throughout the entire harem. In the original story, the harem conflicts were notoriously bloody. Among them was a man named Pan Lushue who possessed the divine power of green water. Although he was just a supporting character, his combat power was very strong. Probably half of the people who drowned in the palace ponds were his handiwork. The news that Huaxian Palace was bestowed upon her must be known to everyone by now. It wouldn't be strange to be attacked at this point. Tonight will be dangerous. Besides the Empress, who else could protect her all night? While worrying, Shanai turned her head and saw Shuyan. Isn't the solution right in front of her? As the head court lady of her palace, Shuyan was also quite trusted by the Empress. Every time she was held, she could feel her strong muscles. She wouldn't lose in a hand-to-hand fight. Shanai felt a little embarrassed. She shyly asked Shuyan if she could sleep with her tonight. Shuyan subconsciously refused. That would be against the rules. She knew she was asking for too much. But to stay alive, she pleaded pitifully, "Is it really not possible?" Faced with this face, Shuyin really couldn't say no. Late at night, Shuyin simply moved a stool and sat upright and proper by Shanya's bed, maintaining a perfect social distance. Shanai was still a little worried, afraid that she would leave after she fell asleep. She was too worried to sleep at all. If you can't sleep, would you like me to tell you a story? I'm just worried you'll leave after I fall asleep. Shuyin didn't expect Her Highness to be so dependent on her and was somewhat touched. She promised she would stay here. Only after hearing this did Shanai dare to fall asleep peacefully. But not long after, a maid hurriedly found Shuyin, saying that Her Majesty was urgently looking for her. It seemed she wanted to ask about matters concerning Her Highness. Shuyin thought of Consort Chao, who had just been cleared of suspicion of being a spy. Fearing the Empress had something urgent, she entrusted this maid to protect Her Highness well and left in a hurry. As soon as Shuyin left, the maid's demeanor changed. She slowly approached the sleeping Shanai. She used her divine power. Water from nowhere began to pour into the room from all directions. She intended to drown her silently. After summoning the water, the maid left without a sound. It wasn't until the water reached the bed that Shanai woke with a start. She found that the room was already flooded, and Shuyin was nowhere to be seen. The little consort who just wanted to live a peaceful life after entering the palace, but the Empress doted on her. But this also attracted the jealousy of other consorts, who tried to drown her in her own chambers. Shanai looked at the room that was about to be submerged and cried for help. But the room seemed to be sealed by something. Her voice couldn't get out at all. Crying for help was futile, and the water was rising too fast. At this rate, she would really drown. Seeing the water level about to submerge her entire body, Shanai didn't want to just wait for death. She took a deep breath and dived into the water. Shanai discovered that although the room was full of water, it didn't overflow at all. This meant someone had used divine power. It seemed it was that guy, Pan Lu. Shanai struggled to cover her mouth. She couldn't hold her breath much longer. She had to find an exit and escape quickly. The door was too far. She could only turn to the nearest window. She rammed it with her body again and again. But being submerged in water, she couldn't use any force. Gurgle. Shanai knew she was reaching her limit. Just then, she saw a vase floating by. Maybe this would work. Shanai used her last bit of strength to lift the vase. With a crash, the vase broke through the window. Shanai couldn't hold on any longer. She broke the surface and gasped for fresh air. But the next second, she was swept out by the current. Just as she was about to roll off the eaves, Shanai reacted in time and grabbed the edge of the eaves. She tried to cry for help, but her exhausted body couldn't hold on. She fell straight down. The commotion finally attracted the maids, who rushed over to check. A soaked Shanai was already lying unconscious on the grass. The sound of flowing water echoed in her ears. It felt like Shanai was still in the water, unable to breathe. Someone save me. Shanai jolted awake from her dream. Are you all right? Shanai looked blankly at Malanai, Shuyin, and Shisha. For such a despicable thing to happen in the palace, I will definitely find the culprit. Shanai felt a chill down her spine, looking at Malanai's ferocious eyes. The next second, Malanai grabbed her hand to comfort her. Shanai, you must have been very scared, but you did very well. It's all over now. Rest assured. Hearing such gentle words, Shanya's nose tingled, and tears she could no longer hold back streamed down her cheeks. After the danger of that night, she never thought she would survive. After the drowning incident, the security at Huashan Palace was tightened considerably. Under the Empress's wrath, Pan Lu was executed for the crime of treason. Shu Yin, who had deserted her post, was also nearly exiled for this. But Shanai knew Shu Yin didn't do it on purpose. At her insistence, Shu Yin was allowed to stay by her side. In any case, she didn't have to worry about danger for the time being. Thinking of this, Shanai felt that today's tea and pastries tasted even better. Just then, Shu Yin reported, "Your Highness, I have brought someone to pay their respects to you." The little consort just wanted to live quietly after entering the palace. But unexpectedly, the Empress doted on her alone. This affection also brought her mortal danger. To prevent the tragedy from repeating, Shu Yin brought a silver-haired, blue-eyed boy. From today on, you will be your shadow, protecting you without leaving your side for a moment. Shanai found this strange. This shadow was a plot point that didn't appear in the original story. Shu Yin explained to her, the shadows are Her Majesty's direct guard unit. They must obey any command from their master. They possess extraordinary power and are the Empress's exclusive secret weapon. In other words, the Empress had chosen one of her shadows and given him to Shanai. Although he is still a child, he is actually a master no less skilled than an adult. As a maid close to the Empress, Shu Yin knew of the shadow's existence. It seems Shisha should also be aware. However, for such a top-secret matter, doesn't that mean that most people in the harem don't even know the shadows exist? Shanai was overjoyed. She felt like she had hit the jackpot. That Empress finally did something right. Shanai composed herself. What is your name? Hearing Shanya's question, the boy was taken aback. He didn't speak, but instead obediently lowered his head and bowed. Shanai didn't understand. What does this mean? Your Highness, there is something you need to know. For some reason, he is unable to speak immediately when someone talks to him. He can only speak after he gets used to them. After speaking, she pressed down on the boy's head and they bowed together, hoping for Shanya's understanding. Seeing this, Shanai quickly told them to rise, that I understand the situation. So what's his name? Just call him Fu Xiao. Shanai thought of him for some special reasons. Perhaps Fu Xiao was also a fake name, but she still called him Fu Xiao softly. As soon as the words left her mouth, the boy dropped to one knee, awaiting her command. Shanai was startled by his action. No need for formalities. Please get up. My name is Shanai. I'm 8 years old this year. It's nice to meet you. Would you like to come and sit? Hearing the command, Fu Xiao obediently walked over and sat down quietly across from Shanai. Shanai looked at the boy's well-behaved appearance, and her heart was about to melt. He was like a little puppy. She then pushed the snacks beside her towards him. Want some? Hearing this, Fu Xiao nodded lightly. That's more like it. Even if he's one of the shadows, he's still just a child. Beside them, Shisha looked at the two of them. Her innocent look. Her Highness seems to like Fu Xiao very much. Shu Yin's constantly worried heart also relaxed a little. Yes, this is wonderful. When night fell, Shanai was still tossing and turning, unable to sleep peacefully. Although she had a new palace and guards to protect her, she was still worried someone was trying to harm her. She couldn't calm down at all. Shanai threw off the covers, walked to the window, and pushed it open. Breathing in the air from outside, she finally felt a bit more refreshed. Suddenly, a small stone was thrown from downstairs, hitting the side of the window. Shanai looked down. It's Fu Xiao. Why are you still outside? Aren't you going to sleep? But Shanai forgot that he couldn't speak yet. So Fu Xiao just waved at her. Shanai didn't mind. She waved back, signaling for him to come up. Be careful not to catch a cold. Fu Xiao smiled and acknowledged. Then Shanai turned to go open the door for him. With just a couple of light taps, Fu Xiao vaulted through the window and appeared before Shanai. Shanai looked up at him. The moonlight made his eyes shine like jewels. No, wait. This is not the time to admire his beauty. She quickly pulled Fu Xiao down. That's too dangerous. What if you get hurt? Unexpectedly, in the next moment, he spoke softly. I'm sorry. Shanai was stunned for a moment, but she quickly recovered. I didn't expect you to speak so soon. Is it because you've gotten used to talking to me? As soon as she finished speaking, Fu Xiao dropped to his knees with a thud. Your Highness is of noble birth. I dare not. It is true that I have my reasons. Fu Xiao wanted to continue explaining. Shanai stepped forward and interrupted him. It's all right. It's okay. I was just happy to hear you speak. I wasn't offended. So please get up, Fu Xiao. Also, don't kneel before me like this in the future. Remember? Fu Xiao could not refuse Shanya's command, so he softly agreed. After a moment, Shanai wondered why he was not sleeping in the middle of the night and was still outside. Fu Xiao's face reddened unconsciously. Because you asked for my name during the day. Fu Xiao is just my name as a shadow. Then may I ask what your real name is? Fu Xiao nodded awkwardly. He clearly wants to tell me. So cute. Then please tell me your real name. Guyun. My name is Guyun. Shanai looked at him gently, softly repeating the name. Although she didn't know if the name Guyun referred to a lonely, ethereal cloud or a solitary, proud cloud, it was a very beautiful name. Guyun looked at Shanya's smiling face, his hands fidgeting behind his back. Shanai felt that, although it was their first time meeting today, Guyun had told her his real name. She felt that if he were by her side, she would feel very much at ease. And he's so cute. The way he fidgets is like a little cat. His obedient and docile manner is like a little dog. Suffering in the palace at such a young age, it's too heartbreaking. Shanai resolved to take good care of him. Of course, she forgot that she herself was also very young. Then Shanai grabbed Guyun's arm. Then I'll be in your care from now on. Guyun's heart pounded with fear as she grabbed him. Before he could react, Shanai excitedly turned around to rummage through the gift she had received, wanting to play with him. Guyun stared blankly at Shanya's back. His hand remained in the position it was in when she held it. He slowly clenched his fist. Lady Shanai, my master, After sleeping soundly last night with Gyun's company, Shanai, half awake, seemed to hear the emperor's voice. You're sleeping so soundly. It seems you didn't sleep well last night. Shanai opened her eyes. Her mind went blank for a moment, then she sat up abruptly. It really was the emperor. She hurriedly bowed. Shanai greets your majesty. Did I startle you? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to wake you, so please sleep if you want to. Just then, Gyun, who had been guarding Shanai, walked over. He bowed respectfully to the emperor. Shanai remembered this was the only good thing the emperor had done. She stood up to thank him. It was your majesty who sent Fu Xiao to my side. I like him very much. Thank you, your majesty. The emperor was very pleased that Shanai liked him. He praised Malanai for her excellent judgment. Hearing this, Shanai realized that Gyun had actually been chosen by Malanai. But that made sense. After all, they were in the same boat. Why hadn't she thought of it sooner? At this moment, the emperor was still making assurances. Malanai is very tight-lipped and won't say anything. In the future, no one else will know Fu Xiao's identity. Shanai thought of Gyun, no longer her own secret trump card, and felt a little sad. But she still had to grit her teeth and express her gratitude. But speaking of which, why has your majesty graced this place with your presence? The emperor then remembered. He had something to give to Gyun. He took a piece of paper from his sleeve and handed it to him. Take it. It's from your companion. Shanai was puzzled, looking at the note. Are there no attendants in this country? Does such a small task as delivering a letter require the emperor himself to do it? Shuyan was terrified. How could you deliver it personally? The emperor casually made up an excuse. It was close by, so I brought it over. Huaxian Palace is not close to Hualong Palace. If I say it's close, it's close. Shanai looked at Shu Yin with admiration, who calmly argued with the emperor. Suddenly, there was a ripping sound from the side. Gyun was tearing the letter to shreds, piece by piece. Everyone stared at his actions in shock. Gyun held the shredded paper in one hand. With his other hand, he gestured as Shu Yin translated for Shanai. Your Highness, Fu Xiao was just asking if he needs to eat it. What? Before Shanai could react, Gyun picked up the shredded paper and was about to stuff it into his mouth. Don't. Wait a minute. Shanai rushed over, grabbing Gyun's hand to stop him. What are you doing? You can't eat this. Gyun met Shanya's worried eyes and couldn't help but take a step back. He lowered his head to hide his blush. Unexpectedly, the emperor seemed to have found flaw. Fu Xiao, did you lose your footing just now? Shanai turned to look at the emperor's serious expression. Was it because he saw Gyun take a step back that he thought he was weak? This won't do. This is a friend I finally made. The emperor's gaze looked as if he was about to get rid of Gyun in the next second. I have to divert his attention. But what should I do? In that case, I'll just throw myself on the ground. Shanai tried to recall all the past events, feeling more and more sad and angry. They were all bad guys, every single one of them. They only knew how to bully a child like her. And so, she completely broke down, wailing. Watching Shanai throw a tantrum on the ground startled the emperor and the others. Shanai, what's wrong with you? Do you not like Fu Xiao? I'll get you a new one. The emperor had just finished speaking when Shanai burst into loud sobs. Shu Yin very wisely realized that wasn't it. Realizing he had said the wrong thing, the emperor, at a loss, continued to coax her. I'm sorry, Shanai. I won't replace him. Please don't cry, okay? About to solve the problem, Shanai looked reassuringly at the anxious Gyun. Just as she was about to wrap things up, the door was thrown open with a whoosh. Shanai, don't cry. It was Malanai, rushing over in a hurry. Shanya's eyes nearly popped out of her head. Why did the biggest pain in the neck have to rush in? Malanai hurriedly bowed to the emperor. Then she pulled a hairpin from her hair and handed it to Shanai. I'll give you this. Don't cry. Shanai stared blankly at the glittering golden hairpin, then fainted from exhaustion with a thud. After an unknown amount of time, Shanai woke up in her bedchamber with swollen, red eyes. She had no strength left after crying for so long. With a soft sound, just as Shanai sat up, she saw a small stone being thrown in from the window. Could it be? She rushed to the side of the bed and looked down. I knew it was you. Come on up, Gyun. The little concubine and the little guard meet late at night. Gyun sat obediently beside Shanai, letting her play with his hair. There, you should be able to see clearly now. With his bangs swept up, Gyun felt a little uncomfortable, but he still bowed respectfully. Thank you, Your Highness. Shanai looked at him with a satisfied expression. Such beautiful eyes. How could you cover them with bangs? Why did you tear up the letter? No matter how Shanai thought about it, she felt his actions were too extreme. Guyun, however, stammered in his reply. Because of the letter's contents, his ears gradually turned bright red. Whenever he was shy or at a loss, the bridge of his nose and his ears would turn red. In this state, he seemed just like a little kid. Shanai grew even more curious. So what was written on it? So Guyun silently recited all the contents of the letter. As Shanai listened to the vicious words, she immediately stopped him and told Guyun not to say any more. Guyun, however, calmly stated that the contents were really strange. How is that just strange? It's filled with malice. After all, the shadows only recruit the best of the best. A spot that even adults find hard to compete for was taken by a child. The others must be very jealous of Guyun's talent. Shanai was filled with sympathy for Guyun's plight. She reached out and patted his head. You did well, but you can't do that in front of His Majesty. Guyun tilted his head in confusion, not understanding what Shanai meant. Anyway, next time, wait until His Majesty isn't around before you tear it up. Shanai sighed deeply. After all, the child is still young. It would be too much to ask him to learn the ways of the world now. She didn't expect Guyun to misunderstand and think he had done something wrong. He dropped to his knees with a whoosh. This servant is terrified. My ignorance has angered your highness. Angry? Shanai looked puzzled. When was I angry? Thinking it was possible she had put on her cold expression again. She looked at him gently. I'm not angry, Guyun. Really, I'm not angry. Saying this, she extended her pinky finger to him. Guyun stared blankly at Shanya's gesture. Then, as if having a realization, he pulled out a dagger from behind him and aimed it at his own pinky. Shanai was shocked. Wait, stop. She rushed forward and snatched the dagger from Guyun, explaining, we cut off our pinky fingers to make a vow. If you require it. That's not what I meant. Guyun looked closely. Hooking two pinky fingers together is how you make a promise with someone. Got it? You should do this from now on. Guyun looked at their intertwined fingers, his thoughts unreadable. Then, the two fingers separated. Your Highness, can I come and play with you every day? Shanai looked at Guyun's red ears. She grabbed his hand. Of course you can. Guyun, let's have fun together from now on. The next day, Shu Yin, for the first time, strongly insisted that Shanai attend the concubines' meeting. Of course, Shanai didn't want to go. What could a child like her do there? After all, the meeting was just a way for the emperor to naturally order his concubines around. The concubines wouldn't dare to defy their beloved emperor. The emperor was quite happy, but Shanai couldn't find a reason to refuse, so she could only scratch her head in frustration. The palace maids wasted no time, grabbing Shanai to dress her up and do her hair. So when Shanai was sitting in the main hall, it was really difficult. The topics were boring, her clothes were heavy. She was especially careful when entering to avoid attracting attention. Even so, everyone was still screaming while looking at her. She didn't quite understand. After finally taking her seat, Malanai insisted on switching places with her, making her sit in front of the emperor. This wasn't following the plot at all, because the closer the seat was to the emperor, the more it signified one's favor. Shanai was worried the entire time. Someone is probably going to try to kill me again. Just like that, Shanai idly ate snacks, waiting for their meeting to end. Then with a snap, the emperor announced that was all for today. Shanai perked up, lifting her skirt, ready to slip away. So, Your Majesty, who will be attending to you tonight? Shanai was on pins and needles. Is this something an 8-year-old child should be hearing? Yet the emperor actually began to think about it seriously. After a while, under the expectant gazes of the concubines, the emperor finally spoke. I've decided. I'll choose Shanai for tonight. The emperor gave a playful smile to the stunned Shanai. Come to my palace today. I'll read to you. The little concubine just wanted a quiet life after entering the palace. But unexpectedly, the emperor chose her to attend to him in front of all the other concubines. And he was going to read to her. As soon as the emperor finished speaking, the concubines began to whisper among themselves. Shanai looked around in a panic. She didn't want to attract attention. Your Majesty, I'm still young. I'm afraid I cannot serve Your Majesty. The emperor was greatly surprised. What? How could a child resist the charm of fairy tales? Those are fairy tales from the western regions. You're not willing even for that? Shanai was speechless. What is the emperor doing? She was so scared. At this moment, Malanai interjected. Your Majesty, Shanai has only just entered the palace. She is probably not used to it. How about I accompany Shanai tonight? How does that sound? Shanai watched Malanai cup her cheeks, smiling ambiguously. So you two want your private time. Why do you have to drag me into it? The emperor, however, was a little unhappy. Since when did you two become so close? Malanai explained that they had a small gathering before and had a pleasant chat. Shanai thought back to that day, if that could be considered pleasant. Hearing Malanai say this, the emperor smiled brightly. In that case, you can both come over. After the meeting, Shanai walked back to her palace listlessly. It seemed she was in for a sleepless night. That night, Shanai called Gyun over to give him special instructions. Because she was going to spend the night at the emperor's palace, she told him not to come looking for her tonight. Hearing this, Gyun fell silent, looking downcast. His expression clearly said, "Can't you not go?" Shanai felt too guilty. Just yesterday, she had promised him that he could come and play every day. She felt a little sorry for the little puppy. She quickly went over and apologized. "It's just for today. I'm sorry. If you wait for me to come back obediently, I'll promise you one thing." At this moment, a palace maid's urging voice came from outside. Shanai reassuringly stroked his cheek. "Gyun, I'll be right back. See you tomorrow." But Gyun stood there stunned, watching Shanya's departing figure without a word. Shanai arrived at the entrance of the emperor's bedchamber. Hearing the strange sounds of discussion from inside, she really didn't want to go in at all. She hoped they would act normally. Then she signaled the palace maid to announce her. "Your Majesty, Lady Shanai has arrived." Inside the room, the emperor and Malanai quickly hid their hands behind their backs. Shanai was suspicious. She watched the two of them as she slowly walked in and bowed respectfully. With a creak, the emperor turned his head in a panic. The fairy tale book in his hand suddenly fell apart. The doll on the cover fell to the ground with a thud. The emperor said dejectedly that this was the fairy tale book he had wanted to read to Shanai, but it broke before he even had chance. Seeing this, Malanai stepped forward to comfort him, although Shanai didn't understand them. Out of pity, she still picked up the doll from the floor and also spoke comfortingly. "Although the cover is broken, I'm more interested in hearing the contents of the book. I'm very curious about what story it tells." Seeing Shanai so expectant, the emperor finally cheered up. "All right then, I'll read it to you." Then the emperor sat beside Shanai, stammering as he told her the story. Meanwhile, Malanai, at his side, watched them with a strange expression. In this scene, forget about sleeping. She got goosebumps all over. But the emperor's personality was always like this. In the original novel, although the emperor was generous and gentle, he was also a ruler with an iron fist. With the divine power passed down through generations of the royal family, he could easily gain everyone's loyalty and admiration. But he would not favor any one of them. So for such an emperor to personally read fairy tales to a child, Shanai couldn't be bothered to tear down their facade. Just as she was about to close her eyes and sleep, she suddenly caught a glimpse of a figure flashing across the roof, wearing a glittering hairpin. Wait, could that person be? In the next moment, the emperor suddenly asked softly, "Is Shanai asleep?" Shanai immediately closed her eyes and pretended to be asleep. Malanai looked gently at her sleeping form. It seems she's asleep, but she looks so cute even when she's sleeping. The emperor smiled faintly. "Yes, let's go to bed too." Slowly, Shanai opened her eyes again. The longer it went on, the stranger she felt. Why did the emperor act as if he genuinely liked her? Others might not know, but she knew very well. Because it was impossible for the emperor to love anyone. The little concubine's first night attending to the emperor. The emperor slept on her left, the noble consort on her right, and there was a little shadow on the roof. She stayed awake like this until dawn. The next day, Shanai caught Gyun. She questioned whether he had listened to her yesterday and waited quietly for her return. But Gyun let his bangs down to cover his eyes, avoiding her gaze. Shanai stared at him, puzzled. She pointed to the bangs on his head. "Didn't I help you clip your bangs up before? Why did you let them down?" Gyun kept his mouth shut and looked away evasively. In that case, Shanai rummaged through a drawer and found a pair of scissors. "Let's cut your bangs. I'll cut them until I can see your eyes clearly." As soon as she finished speaking, Gyun immediately covered his bangs and refused. Shanai asked strangely why. "My companions say I'm less of an eyesore only when I cover my eyes." Shanai stood frozen. Those adults. It was bad enough that they didn't take good care of a child. What kind of horrible things did they say to him? I'll have to deal with him sooner or later. Shanai stepped forward and pulled away his hands, covering his bangs. "Gyun, you are very good looking. Your eyes, nose, and mouth are all very beautiful, so you don't need to cover them up at all. Don't mind what others say about you, okay?" "Yes, your highness. So why did you go to Hualong Palace last night?" The sudden question caught him off guard, but Gyun stubbornly denied it. "I didn't go," but his face was clearly full of apology. If he's gonna lie, why keep denying it? Could it be because of the promise before she left? Is that why he's lying? Shanai felt a bit helpless, but she hadn't fulfilled her part of the promise first. If he had a desperate wish, he could tell her anytime. She would definitely agree. Perhaps he still didn't feel secure enough. In the end, Shanai decided to let him off the hook. I'll let you go this time. Don't let it happen again. Guyin visibly brightened up, nodding and wagging his tail frantically. He was just like a little puppy. So cute. But Shanai glanced at the box behind her, remembering that she had to go to Malanai's palace tomorrow. Because the dragon head hairpin Malanai had given her was not something anyone could use. It was something only the few with the Yalan royal bloodline were qualified to wear. Even after becoming the emperor's concubine, not everyone could be granted the Yalan surname. Only special people like Malanai had such an honor. So Shanai knew very well that she was not worthy. But she didn't want to take the initiative to see them even more. At dawn, Shanai, along with her palace maids, psyched themselves up on the way to Malanai's palace. At the entrance, Shanai signaled for them to stay back. She took the box from Shisha's hands. She wanted to return the hairpin alone. After being announced, Shanai walked in nervously. But unexpectedly, Malanai was sitting in the hall, waiting for her arrival without any pretense. She subconsciously wanted to slip away. Malanai directly called her. Shanai, come and sit. Shanai could only obey blankly. Malanai smiled kindly. Shanai, what brings you here? Shanai took out the box. I was rude in front of your highness last time. I came today to apologize. Also, last time, your highness, are there any snacks you'd like to eat? Before Shanai could finish, Malanai interrupted her. The chefs here have all been eagerly waiting for you to come. Shanai felt a headache coming on. She casually named a snack to dismiss the topic. Just as she was about to bring the conversation back to the hairpin, Malanai disrupted it again. What kind of fruit do you like? Anything but pears is fine. Malanai gestured like she was talking to a child. Eating pears will give you a tummy ache. Shanai, however, looked at her as if she were a fool. Has this person lost her mind? It seems she's still holding a grudge about what happened before. She quickly took the opportunity to apologize. Your Highness, I failed to take care of my own health and made you worry. So I came too. With a clatter, a palace maid came in with desserts. Shanya's words were interrupted again and again. This time, Shanai was genuinely getting annoyed. Malanai, however, looked at her with a beaming smile. All right, Shanai, please take a seat. As soon as she finished speaking, a fairy tale book fell from her lap with a thud. Malanai apologized, saying it was an accident. Shanai looked in surprise at the crystal slipper on the cover. Even a blind person could see you dropped it on purpose. Malanai picked up the book. She took the opportunity to move closer to Shanai. They all say that when you share knowledge and happiness, the rewards double. Unfortunately, I don't have anyone to share such things with. So, Shanai, are you willing to read it with me? The high and mighty noble consort from the original novel was actually begging a little concubine to listen to her tell a story. Shanai was very confused. She clearly understood her own status and dared not overstep. She respectfully presented the box. I came today to return the hairpin. I was offensive before. Please forgive me, Your Highness. Malanai couldn't bear to see her guarded expression. That was a gift from me. There's no reason to take it back. You can just play with the beads on it or make them into other accessories. By the way, the beads on that hairpin are fragments of the ancestral dragon's wish-fulfilling pearl. They are exceptionally brilliant. Hearing this, Shanai was shocked. Isn't that an inviolable treasure of the royal family? Is she trying to frame me? If I answer, yes, thank you, Your Highness, will she execute me for treason? The more she thought about it, the more scared Shanai became, and she knelt with a thud. Your Highness, Shanai is terrified. I implore you to take it back. Malanai looked at Shanai with pity, who was trembling while holding the hairpin. She sighed and reached out to take the hairpin back. Since you insist on refusing, I won't force you. But Shanai, can I ask you for one thing today? Faced with Malanai's request, Shanai was puzzled, but she could only bow her head respectfully. Your Highness, please command me. Unexpectedly, Malanai gently lifted her head. I want to read a fairy tale to you. I hope you will grant me at least this. Shanai was surprised. She didn't expect it to be such a simple matter. It is my honor, Your Highness. Malanai felt relieved and took her hand. Then let's go sit somewhere comfortable. Shanai was enveloped by this gentle atmosphere and just followed her blankly. Malanai led Shanai to a rocking chair, lifted her up, and sat her down. Wait for me. I'll be right back. Shanai watched Malanai's departing figure, unable to figure out what was happening. Is this still the Malanai I remember? After all, in the original novel, she was so obsessed with having the emperor to herself that she had no time for a minor concubine. But But now she was so concerned about Shanai, afraid she would be lonely in a strange place and constantly taking care of her. Now she even wants to read fairy tales to her. If I'm not mistaken, Malanai seems to dote on me a lot. Shanai felt a little smug. Although I don't know why, this feeling is quite nice. Just then, Malanai came over, dragging another chair. Shanai, you have a rocking chair too, right? What do you think of this one of mine? Shanai habitually chose her words carefully. I think it's very beautiful. It's truly worthy of a noble consort. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly remembered that she didn't really need to be so cautious and watch people's expressions. After all, Malanai wouldn't harm her. Having figured this out, Shanai smiled genuinely and sincerely. She answered affirmatively, "It's really beautiful." Malanai was also infected by her happiness. "I'm so glad you like it." Next, Malanai sat beside Shanai and began to tell the story of a girl named Cinderella from long ago. Shanai listened quietly. Compared to the emperor, Malanai read much better. Her voice was gentle and sweet, and her words were filled with affection for her. So what did she do to win over such an unfathomable man? After the emperor, even Malanai was so gentle to her. Shanai couldn't help but doubt herself. Is it just because she was abused at home, making her pitiful? Or is it because she's like a cute and quiet porcelain doll that can be treated as a mere decoration? Whatever the reason, it's better than being a thorn in their side. Feeling relieved, Shanai slowly, amidst Malanai's gentle story, fell asleep. Malanai looked at her sleeping form with satisfaction. She remembered the girl's smile from just now. She's only 8 years old, yet she lives so cautiously. Is it because of this that you wander the corridors in your sleep every night, pacing back and forth in the corridors every night with a dazed expression? According to the palace maids, this situation seems to have been going on for a long time. She's so much like that child. Suddenly, a soft whimper from Shanai interrupted his thoughts. That's true. Sleeping in a chair can't be comfortable. Malanai stood up and picked Shanai up, then gently placed her on the bed. Looking at the girl's harmless, sleeping face, "Shanai, you must have a good dream." The little concubine woke up to find the emperor's noble consort lying next to her. What on earth is going on? Shanai sat up abruptly and looked around. She remembered this was Malanai's palace. It seemed she fell asleep again. Anyway, it's best to slip away first. Shanai tiptoed off the bed, not forgetting to make the bed before leaving. As if she had never slept there. This is no place to linger. She quickly ran, but just as she opened the door, she accidentally stepped on the hem of her skirt. She fell flat on her face. "Shoo!" Shanai quickly gestured for Shuyin not to make sound. "Your Highness, you have a nosebleed." Just like that, Shanai returned to her palace in a disheveled state. Slowly, summer arrived, and Shanai, as she wished, began to live a life of leisure. However, sweating profusely like this every day was not the life she wanted. Unable to bear the heat, Shanai called for Shisha. "Let's use that thing quickly." Then, Shisha took out 2 magic stones and gently tapped them together. A cool breeze filled the entire chamber. Now that's much better. Shanai lay down again with satisfaction. If it weren't for these magic stones from the Western continent, she would have melted in this world long ago. The Eastern continent has divine power, while the Western continent has magic. Divine power is a personal, individual ability and cannot be stored. Magic, however, only requires mana to be used and can also be stored. Indeed, magic is more convenient than divine power. Shanai counted the time on her fingers. She seemed to have grown a little taller and chubbier than when she first entered the palace. However, she had adapted to palace life. Before, she would be on edge, afraid of inviting disaster. Now she was full of life, with almost no threats. Besides, the emperor would come to see her every other day. Malanai also often came over to perform and interpret her dreams. In their eyes, she was probably just a cute little girl. But even so, she couldn't let her guard down. After all, it's better to be safe than sorry. Thinking of this, she remembered Gyun, who was always protecting her from the shadows. She called him over. "Do you want some snacks?" The little puppy nodded frantically, because everyone was busy preparing for the founding celebration. They had been particularly idle lately. The celebration will last for a whole month, starting for the emperor's accession. After that, envoys from various countries will visit. But none of this had anything to do with Shanai. Then, after eating and playing with Gyun for a while, she started to feel sleepy again. She didn't know when it started, but she would feel extremely tired even after sleeping for 12 hours a day. Suddenly, she heard a rustling sound. It was Gyun writing on a piece of paper. "If you're sleepy, how about we go to the secret garden next time?" Shanai was a little surprised. Did I mention a secret garden before? What does this mean? Guyun continued to write. You said you would take me there before. Did I? Shanai pointed to herself. She had no memory of this at all. What did I say that? Hearing her words, Guyun was very surprised. He secretly glanced at Shisha behind him and wrote furiously. Just last night, Shanai was puzzled by what he wrote. What? Last night, Shanai promised Guyun that she would take him to her secret garden, but she didn't remember it. Guyun wasn't the type to joke about such things, since he knew about that place. It meant that she had indeed told him, but it wasn't really a secret garden. It was just a small backyard Shanai discovered while looking for a doggy door. It seemed she was talking in her sleep, thinking that the garden was located in Huashu Palace. But that shouldn't be her palace. She apologized to Guyun and explained that she couldn't take him there. Seeing Guyun's slightly disappointed look, it seems our little puppy wants to go out and play. Just then, Shisha suddenly spoke up. But Your Highness, Huashu Palace is your palace. It turned out that the Huashian palace she was currently living in was an extra gift from the emperor. Huashu Palace was still hers, but it was now being used as a residence for her palace maids. Thinking about how she had just managed to quell the other concubine suspicions about her. If they found out she had 2 palaces, wouldn't that? Shanai was scared just thinking about it. Your Highness. Shisha interrupted her thoughts. Let me help you change first. Shanai took off her clothes, psyching herself up internally. Anyway, her backer will help her sort it out. She put on her summer-limited skin. She didn't forget to show it off to Guyun. Guyun, do I look good? At that moment, Guyun, who was secretly eating snacks, turned his head. His heart instantly raced, and he couldn't breathe. Seeing him frozen in place, Shanai approached him. Guyun, blushing, retreated again and again. She grabbed Guyun's hand. Let's go. Shanai brought Guyun to the entrance of Huashu Palace. Considering the secrecy of his identity, she decided to go inside and check the situation first, asking him to wait at the door. Unable to express his opinion with pen and paper in time, Guyun was completely misunderstood by Shanai. He could only watch helplessly as she went in by herself. And as Shanai pushed open the door, what greeted her was a group of sturdy, strong, brawny, muscular men. Shanai felt something was off. What were they doing? The men, who were lifting weights, noticed her. One of the men approached Shanai. He mistook her for a lost child. Did you get lost after entering the palace with your parents? This is not a place you should be. Go play outside. It seemed they didn't know her identity. Just as she was about to speak, with a whoosh, Guyun appeared behind the man like lightning. He aimed a kick at him. The man easily blocked it. He turned around. Well, look who it is. Guyun, whose sneak attack failed with a tap, picked up Shanai and moved away from the man, placing her behind him. The man raised an eyebrow and greeted Guyun. Seeing how he was protecting the girl, then she must be Lady Shanai. Hearing him say that, the other muscular men appeared one after another, muttering with curiosity. So this is Lady Shanai. As if they had discovered a rare item, they surrounded them. Shanai, embarrassed and angry, scolded them. Who are you? State your names. Since you've asked so sincerely. The 2 muscular men suddenly struck a pose and continued. Then we will mercifully tell you. I am Shinrin. I am really you. With a whoosh, a flying kick sent them flying. A man named Axia bowed respectfully to her. Then Axia apologized to Shanai, hoping she would be magnanimous and forgive their rudeness. Shanai wasn't buying it and continued to ask about their origins. Axia paused for a moment and replied that they were handymen. Really? Shanai didn't believe his story, since they could recognize the top secret identity of Guyun. Then these men were other shadows disguised as handymen. In other words, these were the culprits who bullied Guyun. Thinking of this, Shanai secretly clenched her fists. Handymen? More like a group of despicable adults ganging up to bully a 12-year-old child. Then today, she would serve justice. The little concubine, to stand up for her little puppy, thought of ways to make things difficult for these muscular men. But do these monsters not get tired? Not only did they repair 3 palaces in one go, but they also moved 100 vats. They even polished the chamber pots until they shone. Shanai trembled with anger. They did it so quickly and well. How could she make things difficult for them? And Riliu was even gloating in front of her. I wonder who polished the chamber pot so brightly. It could even be a mirror for your highness. Shanai was rendered speechless by him. Seeing the situation, Axia, who was on the side, couldn't sit still. He pleaded in a low voice, Your Highness, I'm also good at work. Please let me. Before he could finish, Shanai turned away and mercilessly refused. You can rest. Because Guyun didn't have an extreme reaction to Axia's approach, but was rather calm, Shanai thought he was a good person who didn't bully Guyun. But why does this person keep begging for work? Is his status too low? After a while, Rilliu brought the 100 chamber pots he had polished, seeking praise. The others were endlessly making noise. In the blink of an eye, they had built a new palace. Shanai suspected she was being played. Furious and embarrassed, she called Guyun and went back to her palace. Especially the guy named Rilliu. Thinking of his happy expression, Shanai gritted her teeth. Why is he always so happy? It's so annoying. And a few days later, Your Highness, I've come to serve you. Shanai looked at the person before her, dumbfounded. What on earth is going on? Just seeing this person's face gave her a headache. She had previously written a letter to Malanai, asking her to assign the person with the lowest status among the handymen to her for her amusement. Did Rilliu kill Axia? Seeing Shanya's troubled expression, Guyun wrote a few words. Should I get rid of him? Shanai was so scared she quickly stopped him, although she was tempted. Hearing this, Guyun turned his head and snorted softly, his face full of resentment. And Rilliu, who witnessed the whole thing, suddenly spoke provocatively. You want to fight? The atmosphere instantly became tense. Shanai, at a loss, worried about Guyun, and quickly grabbed his hand. With a serious expression, she shook her head at Guyun. You can't fight. In the next second, Guyun obediently calmed down. Shanai just breathed a sigh of relief when she heard Rilliu start to wail again. He pointed at Guyun in disbelief. Why have you suddenly become so obedient? He continued to shout unwillingly. Your Highness, you're already so cute. Can you give some of that affection to me? She still didn't understand what he meant. Just then, Shuyin knocked and announced herself. Shanai quickly told her to come in. As soon as she entered, Shuyin fell silent, looking at the situation in the room. Then she sternly ordered the palace maids to leave. Do not enter without her permission. Hearing this, Shanai was a bit confused. What's going on? These palace maids were her trusted ones who had protected her, but Shuyin sent them away without a word to her. Did another concubine play a trick? Shanai fell into self-doubt. Did someone slander me in front of the emperor? Have I offended anyone recently? I can't imagine what will happen next. Am I going to be abandoned? The head palace maid suddenly dismissed all of the little concubine's confidence. This strange situation made Shanai fall into self-doubt. Then Shuyin gestured to Shisha. Even Guyun nodded in understanding. Shanai was even more confused. Why Guyun too? Before she could think further, she heard Shuyin say to Rilliu with a serious expression, You are now Her Highness's guard. If you keep talking so carelessly, even a passing dog could guess your identity. Hearing this, Rilliu hung his head in annoyance, promising it wouldn't happen again. She then bowed to Shanai. Your Highness was frightened. The matter of the shadows must be kept secret, so we had to do this. So it was a false alarm. Shanai habitually scared herself, but with Guyun around, she shouldn't have been too worried. Rilliu, on the side, stared intently at their clasped hands. Guyun noticed and looked up to meet his gaze. Why are you here? The sudden words startled Rilliu. He pointed at Guyun repeatedly in disbelief. His reaction made Guyun look smug. I never said I was mute, but why did you come here? Unexpectedly, he heard from Rilliu's mouth that it was because Her Highness said she needed a new guard. This time, it was Guyun's turn to be in disbelief. He turned his head resentfully to look at Shanai. Shanya's mouth opened and closed, at a loss for where to begin. After a moment, she calmed down. Considering Guyun's safety, it was better to first clarify their relationship. Then she went forward and pulled Guyun over. Shanai pushed him against the door. With a thud, her small hand rested on the wall, leaving him no escape. Guyun, be honest with me. Did Rilliu bully you? Hearing her say this, Guyun was stunned, and Shanai stared intently at his face, afraid he was suffering in silence. No, he didn't. He just likes to joke around a lot. Shanai was still a little worried. His expression just now clearly wanted to kill Rilliu. But looking at Rilliu behind her, who was still chattering nonstop, she thought about it. A guy with a head full of flowers probably couldn't write that kind of terrible letter. So she called Rilliu over and asked him. The other party actually looked proud. I did write the letter. He then went on and on about his misunderstood heart. Shanai, annoyed, was about to speak, but was interrupted by him again. This was really getting on her nerves. Rilliu finally realized something was wrong. He knelt down with a whoosh to beg for forgiveness, pulling out a dagger and holding it to his pinky. Which part should I cut off to appease your anger? Seeing this, Shuyan quickly stepped forward to stop him. "How can you take out such a dangerous thing in front of her highness?" Saying this, she grabbed Riliu by the collar and threw him over her shoulder. Shanai looked at her with admiration. As expected, Shuyan was the most reassuring. The farce ended. Shisha brought snacks. Shuyan stood by and watched Shanai bewildered. What is going on in her highness's little head? She was always so scared at the beginning, but in the end, she always managed to remain calm. She had served her highness for some time now, but she was still often surprised. Just like that night, the head palace maid who was once sent by the emperor to monitor her had unknowingly developed genuine feelings for the little concubine. That night, Shu Yin, with her luggage in hand, was planning to leave quietly. But unexpectedly, Shanai appeared before her as if she had been waiting for a long time. "Shu Yin, thank you for your care during this time. I hope you will continue to serve His Majesty well in the future." The girl's understanding surprised Shu Yin. "Your Highness, did you know all along that I would be leaving?" Shu Yin's eyes were filled with pity. The girl knew she would leave, yet she pretended not to care and endured it silently. Shanai saw the tears welling up in her eyes and quickly explained, "No, that's not it. I just heard that you were specially sent to take care of me, so I thought you would eventually return to His Majesty's side. But then I was assassinated again and always caused trouble, so I thought you wouldn't leave." Who knew that hearing her say this made Shu Yin feel even more pity? She grabbed Shanya's hand and said firmly, "Your Highness, I'm not going anywhere. I won't leave you. I will always protect your highness." Hearing this, Shanai, who had been a little downcast before, was moved by her sincerity. She let her pull her into an embrace. "Thank you, Shu Yin." And back to the present. Ever since Shanai told Riliu Gyun's real name, he had been wailing and howling, and Shu Yin began to consider the possibility of sending Riliu back, although Shanai also regretted it deeply. But no matter what, Malanai had sent the person over. Shouldn't she go and express her thanks? Just then, Shu Yin, who had just returned from Malanai's, reported to her. "The noble consort says you are welcome to visit any time. It's fine to go today." Shanai felt a great deal of pressure. Wasn't this a blatant hint? She immediately decided to take people to Hualing Palace. Shanya's group walked through the courtyard, listening to Riliu's chattering all the way. It felt like a lifetime ago, thinking of the Shanai in the original novel, who only lived for 4 years here. 4 years, which means age 12. Could she survive that year? Just then, the Emperor suddenly jumped out in front of Shanai. Shanai reined in her emotions and bowed respectfully. The Emperor was very happy. He was just on his way to Huaxian Palace to find Shanai, and Shanai appeared right before him. "By the way, I have something for you." A palace maid beside him presented a glittering golden brocade box. She didn't know when it started, but the Emperor would always give her some gifts. Even though Shanya's reaction was always cold, the gifts he brought became more and more extravagant. Shanai only felt that this emperor was becoming more and more difficult to deal with. "What's he going to give me this time? It's not a palace deed, is it?" And the emperor confidently assured her, "You will definitely like this gift." Hearing him say that, Shanai looked up nervously. She watched as the box was slowly opened. The beloved Empress. Yet she only tried to please him in every way. The 8-year-old little concubine, Yuhua, opened the brocade box with great joy. Shanya's face was filled with shock when she saw what was inside. It was a bouquet of rare flowers and herbs from the western regions. She took it out of the box, ignoring the emperor's incessant chatter in her ear, and fell into deep thought while holding the flowers. This flower was her mother's favorite in her past life. This flower is called Phrygia. "Do you like it?" Shanai came back to her senses and bowed to express her gratitude. She had a strange feeling in her heart, but her mouth was still numbly spouting platitudes. After sending the emperor off, she turned and called for Gyun, casually handing him the flowers. Shanai didn't want to see any trace of her mother on him. Yuhua stared blankly at this scene. In the silence, he suddenly called out, "Shanai, you still hate me as much as before." Shanai looked up in shock, completely unable to understand why he had such a sad expression. Just then, Yuhua asked Riliu where they were going. Learning that they were heading to Hualing Palace, he stepped forward and gently patted Shanya's shoulder. He told her to be careful on the way. Before Shanai could reply, he turned and left. What on earth is going on? Shanai was in Malanai's palace, but her soul was still in the courtyard, unable to figure out. Malanai, sitting opposite her, watched her muttering to herself and not responding when called. She suddenly leaned in and asked, "Shanai, are you all right?" This startled Shanai back to her senses, and she quickly apologized to Malanai. Unexpectedly, he brought up the main reason for her distraction. Is it because of his majesty? I sense his presence nearby. Seeing that Shanai didn't deny it, Malanai became a little curious. Shanai, did his majesty do something to make you unhappy? This question made Shanai a little embarrassed. Is it that obvious that she dislikes his majesty? She answered softly, no. Seeing her reaction, Malanai seemed to understand. Although his majesty is not very good at expressing himself, he definitely cares for you sincerely. If he unintentionally did something to offend you, just forgive him this once, okay? After Malanai finished speaking, Shanai did not answer immediately this time. After a moment of silence, she asked him, does the noble consort love his majesty? Malanai was surprised for a moment. Then she slowly curved her lips into a smile that spoke for itself. He looked as if he had truly fallen in love. But before falling in love with Yuhua Yalan, one must know. The divine power inherited by the Yalan imperial family is a power that surpasses the 7 great families. So what is the reason that even the Rulan family, with their powerful psychic abilities, is unwilling to directly offend the imperial family? It's because no one even has such a thought. It's because the Yalan's divine power is to be loved by all. And at the same time, they're unable to fall in love with anyone. Shanai, knowing this, how could she believe that the emperor's affection for her was genuine? She clearly knew of the filth in the harem, yet she coldly turned a blind eye, only hoping the concubines would find their own way to live peacefully. But Shanai had no intention of following the old path from the original story. Malanai gently held Shanya's small hand. Looking at her with some confusion, Shanai, what's wrong? She was just thinking if Malanai and Jalan, and the countless favored concubines and ministers, what would happen after they learned that the emperor's love was just an act? Of course, it all had nothing to do with her anymore. Shanai pulled her hand back and lowered her head to answer Malanai's earlier question. Your Highness, I don't dislike Her Majesty. On the contrary, I'm very grateful to her. Hearing her say this, Malanai was silent for a moment. Looking at Shanya's clenched hands, Shanai, look at me. Why are you lying? As the ruler of a nation, the woman, she possessed the ability to be loved by all. Any child of the nobility who entered the palace would willingly be used by her. But only Shanai was clear-headed and coldly resisted all her advances. Malanai's expression turned cold. She raised her hand and thumped the girl on the head, much like dealing with one's own misbehaving child. Shanai, who was suddenly hit, could only look at Malanai speechlessly. She couldn't hit back. After a moment of silence, Shanai, in your eyes, we must have many flaws. But even adults don't know everything in the world. I still have to apologize to you. We failed to become adults you could trust. But Her Majesty and I will keep trying. We will wait for you to open your heart. So, Shanai, you can approach us anytime. Say whatever you want, whenever you want. We'll be right here waiting for you. Shanai listened in astonishment. But why was she apologizing? It wasn't Malanai's fault. But what was this feeling? It seemed as if her closed-off heart had been stirred. Shanai didn't even know how she left the palace. When she came to her senses, she was under a grove of trees. She didn't know if she should let herself believe. She was also afraid of ending up like the Shanai in the original story, begging for the emperor's favor or dying a tragic death. Although they seemed to like her now. But what if one day they changed their minds and no longer liked her? No one would care about her. No one would even tell her gentle lies. Then she would be locked in the palace to spend the rest of her life quietly and alone. Yes, it was already miserable enough to have transmigrated into Shanya's body. What would she do if she was truly alone forever? Just thinking about it made her heart ache. She was really afraid of being lonely. As she was feeling sad, a cough suddenly came from behind her. She didn't even have to think to know who it was. Turning around, it was indeed Jalan. Wagging her tail frantically, she cautiously approached the girl and sat down. Unexpectedly, Shanai let out a deep sigh. Jalan was instantly at a loss. Not knowing what to do, Shanai could only pat her to help her relax. Don't be nervous. Looking at Jalan's silly smile, Shanai spoke with some hesitation. Consort Xian, why do you like me? The unexpected question made Jalan blush bright. Are indeed I it that obvious? Then why the hell are you blushing? Jalan thought her affection for the girl wasn't apparent. Shanai thought, in reality, it's more obvious than a louse on a monk's head. When it came to the reason for liking her, Jalan fell into deep thought, as if it were a question that required intense contemplation. Shanai herself also felt that there was probably nothing likable about her. She doesn't act cute, is old-fashioned, and doesn't like to smile. How can anyone like her? Otherwise, the only reason I like you is... The girl entered the palace as a concubine at the age of 8. To avoid the tragic ending of the original story, she took every step with great care. But unlike in the original story, she seemed to have easily gained everyone's affection. This made her even more terrified and uneasy. Why do you like me? There's no reason. I just do. Jalan said with a rare, serious expression. Shanai, however, was stunned. How could that be? She wasn't worthy of being liked. She had none of the characteristics of typical girl. She didn't smile, didn't act cute, and had a gloomy personality. She figured Jalan must be lying to her. The next second, Jalan, seemingly a little angry, pulled at her small, round face. Isn't that right? You little girl. There's so much space, yet you don't run, jump, or play. When I was your age, even dogs would steer clear of me, you know? Then she let go of her face and fiercely ruffled the girl's hair. But you're still very cute, like my little sister. Hearing this, Shanai stared blankly, covering her reddened cheeks. She sees me as family? Then are Yuhua and Malanai the same? This is too absurd. Beside her, Jalan was still talking to herself. S.O., you shouldn't call me your highness anymore. How about big brother or daddy? Or uncle? How about Uncle Jalan? But Shanai suddenly informed her with a grave expression. Your highness, are you trying to become sworn brothers with my father, the current prime minister, Chi Ing of the Rilon family? Just hearing that name, Jalan turned her head and explained, breaking out in a cold sweat, I meant no offense to your esteemed father. I still like my own family. Shanai expressed her understanding. Compared to her own family, she also preferred Jalan's family. Speaking of which, Jalan finally got serious. Who was that person? Who on earth said you don't act cute, have a gloomy personality, and aren't adorable? Seeing the anger burning in her, with an expression like her favorite idol had been slandered, Shanai selectively ignored the tiger-like aura slowly approaching her. She stuck out her index finger and poked her. It's a secret. While she was stunned, Shanai got up to leave, her steps swift as she made a quick exit. She gave Jalan no chance to keep her there. She hid in the palace for a while before rushing back. Guiyun and Riliu immediately popped out. The next second, Guiyun, worried about the face that Jalan had pinched red, was at a loss. Understanding, Shanai went forward and held his face, massaging it at I'm fine, don't worry, patting her own little puppy's chubby face. Shanai was instantly healed. On the other side, in the main hall, Yuhua, vexed, had thrown crumpled paper balls all over the floor. The dignified ruler of a nation was spending a whole day writing an apology letter. She never thought that gaining the trust of an 8-year-old child would be harder than ruling a country. Only at this moment did the Empress, who never had to worry about making people like her, falter. But what was this strange feeling? I hope she can have happiness. I hope she can live a life of peace and joy. I hope the one who can make her happy is me. Just because she was an illegitimate daughter, a good-for-nothing who didn't inherit her family's abilities. Shanai was sent into the palace just after turning 8, married to the Empress to become her concubine. But her caution, sensibility, and obedience left Empress Yuhua completely puzzled. What kind of feelings do I have for Shanai? Is it romantic love between women? No, that's too disgusting. Is it the love for my people? But I can't treat her like an ordinary subject. After all, Shanai is really cute. She tries hard to act indifferent, but the way her eyes light up when she sees sweets is very cute. When she's impatient, the weary look in her eyes is also very cute. Yuhua was quite troubled. It was the first time she had seen such an adorable creature, so she unconsciously wanted to be good to her. So, does Shanai feel that what I'm doing is putting too much pressure on her? But Yuhua had no ill intentions. It was just that when she saw beautiful silks, she wanted to make clothes for her. When she saw delicious desserts, she wanted her to try them. Even though Shanai never smiled because of it. She's so beautiful when she smiles. Yet she's like an 80-year-old, having seen through the vicissitudes of the world. If Shanai were my child, she muttered inexplicably. Yuhua had a sudden realization. Could it be that she cherished Shanai as her own child? However, she had only ever read in books about the feelings parents have for their children. And Shanya's every frown and smile tugged at her heart. Is this the love for a child? This discovery made Yuhua's heart beat faster. At least she could be sure that this feeling was indeed the closest to motherly love. Having confirmed her feelings, Yuhua stood up, no longer struggling with the apology letter. Before that, she had to go through all the parenting books. This novice mother, asked for the guidance of all you books. The next day, the atmosphere in the Huaxian Palace was exceptionally gloomy. The reason was that Shanai had received an apology from the emperor first thing in the morning. The atmosphere was too oppressive. Shisha spoke cautiously. The next second, the letter fell from Shanya's hand. She pulled at her hair in frustration. Suddenly, the frantic action left the maids at a loss. But how could she calm down? How could this letter be written by someone who doesn't understand love? The entire lengthy letter was filled with a sincere and heartfelt apology. This was no longer the plot of the original story that Shanai knew. When she first entered the palace, almost every day made her heart pound with fear. But now, the entire harem was harmonious and happy. In the original story, Jialan and Malanai schemed against each other. Now, they were living together peacefully. So it was her intervention that had changed this world. Shanai frowned and looked at the letter again. If the gifts I sent before put too much pressure on you, I apologize to you. I didn't mean to make you unhappy. Shanai felt her head was about to explode. If the Yuhua she knew had already become like an ordinary person, then what did those cold words she said before become? Shanai held her head, trying hard to find a reason for why Yuhua had become like this. In an instant, she suddenly thought of the divine power. It must be because of the divine power that she's like this. Having found a reason, Shanai felt at ease. After all, the emperor took concubines precisely to use their divine powers at will. And the Rilon family's psychic power is very strong. The emperor must be trying to win her over in order to use her divine power. No wonder she's so attentive to her. In that case, Shanai decided to tell the emperor this secret. Tell her that she is a good-for-nothing and an illegitimate daughter. However, after confessing, she would probably be cast out of the palace as a useless concubine. And returning to the Rilon family, she would likely be crushed to death by Qi Ying. Although it was a bit heartbreaking, she would beg the emperor not to kick her out. Even being a palace maid would be fine. Having figured it out, Shanai sighed deeply. All her efforts to live a quiet life before were in vain. But she was still very happy to have their company. Even if she were to be alone in the future, she would definitely be able to endure. Her long silence made Shisha a little uneasy. Shanai comforted her softly. It's nothing. But Shu Yin, who had been quietly watching her, suddenly spoke. Your Highness, may I give you a hug? The little concubine had finally made up her mind to reveal her secret completely. Shu Yin looked at the girl, whose lonely expression had returned, and her heart felt like it was being stabbed. The next moment, she pulled her tightly into her arms. Her eyes were full of pity. Your Highness, we are right here. As long as you give the word, we are willing to stay by your side forever. Shu Yin's embrace was gentle and warm. If she could, she didn't want to lose such an embrace either. But she had already made up her mind. Before going to see Her Majesty again, she needed to prepare some things. When the moon was high in the sky, Riliu carried Shanai and ran at top speed. She never expected that making those things would take so much time. She actually made the emperor wait. She must be tired of living. She rushed and finally arrived. Clutching the things in her hand, she cautiously asked, Has Her Majesty already rested? Before the palace maid could announce her, the sound of footsteps came from inside the room. The next second, Yuhua swung the door open. Shanai, you're finally here. I've been waiting for you. Shanai looked at the emperor who had suddenly appeared, her mind instantly going blank. She mechanically held out the things in her hand. Please accept this. But her heart was pounding, afraid that she wouldn't like it. She felt that using such things as a bribe seemed a bit unpresentable. Yuhua untied the bag. She was a little surprised when she saw what was inside. The pastries in the bag didn't look very good, and although she didn't know how they tasted, they were indeed the first thing Shanai had ever tried hard to bake. Because she had hurt the emperor's feelings before, she had been feeling a little guilty. Yuhua clutched the bag tightly. Thank you. Tears of emotion welled up in the child's eyes that I will cherish them and savor every bite. Shanai didn't expect the gift of pastries to be so effective. Yuhua was already beaming with joy. She eagerly pulled her into the palace. What was bound to happen had finally come. Shanai sat properly across from the emperor, hesitating before she spoke. There is something about me that you do not know. Thinking the girl was about to open her heart to her, Yuhua was a little happy. But Shanai took a deep breath. Slowly, she revealed, I am an illegitimate daughter with no divine power. I did not inherit the Rulon family's psychic power. Yuhua was slightly taken aback upon hearing this, then seemed to let out a sigh of relief. Oh, that's how it is. What kind of reaction was that? Afraid she didn't believe her, Shanai seriously and repeatedly emphasized that she really didn't inherit even a tiny bit of divine power. She had no ability to use divine power. And this time, Yuhua seemed to have heard her. After thinking seriously for a moment, she said, "Then shall we embark on an adventure to find your divine power?" What was with this tone, as if coaxing a child? Shanai didn't understand why she wasn't surprised by this. But Yuhua was also a little confused. Why should she be surprised by something she already knew? At that moment, Shanai felt as if she had been struck by lightning. What do you mean you already knew? You are an illegitimate daughter and a good-for-nothing who didn't inherit the family's divine power. After marrying the Empress at the age of 8, Shanai lived every day in fear. She was terrified that someone would discover her secret. But why did everyone already know? Her secret exposed, Shanai was at a complete loss. Yuhua thought for a moment. It was probably after you were assassinated, when you started bringing 2 guards with you. Everyone started to guess. Does that mean that among the concubines, she was the only one with guards? In that case, Shanai taking them with her every day was like advertising to the whole world that she had nothing. It was a wonder she had survived until now. But more importantly, Yuhua already knew and still kept a useless person like her by her side. Do you find a child's mischievousness interesting? Did you feel a whim to play a parent-child game? Faced with Shanya's anger, Yuhua couldn't refute it. Maybe it really was as she said, but this wasn't a game born of a whim. It was because she truly saw her as her own daughter. Receiving such an answer, Shanai felt helpless. Yuhua, however, said with some embarrassment that she was not a very competent mother and couldn't give her much. But I can give you a mountain of gold or pave your palace with diamonds. I can even give you this country as long as you are willing. Shanai found it more and more incredible. Is this person drunk? Weren't they both drinking tea? She couldn't understand. How could there be such unconditional love in this world? What's in it for you? But Yuhua was stunned by her words. The next moment, she suddenly retorted forcefully, in the entire world, who is more lovable than you? Just you breathing in the palace is a benefit to me. What kind of talk was that? Shanai argued logically. You say you'll give me a mountain of gold, give me the country, and treat me as your own child. Then will you really adopt me? Deny it now. I've already said this much. Take this chance to draw a line between us. You're an emperor who can't fall in love with anyone. Are you willing? Yuhua's cool voice came through. Shanya's heart felt as if it had been struck by a strange force. Is she serious? The words of rebuttal lost their steam. That it's not. It's not like it can happen just because I'm willing. But Yuhua was unquestionable. Why not? Of course it can. Her matter-of-fact tone made Shanai a bit flustered. That I am your concubine, and I was sent here by the Rulon family. How can you adopt your own wife as your child? Yuhua felt her imperial authority was being questioned. That I insist on adopting you. Hearing her say this, Shanya's fur stood on end. Fine. Bring it on. I'm willing. Yuhua's goal was achieved. But the contest between the two couldn't be lost. Since you've agreed, if you go back on your word, you'll get a scolding. Of course. No problem. Her Majesty had finally caught the child slip up. Yuhua suddenly stood up. Your Majesty, I am now your Mother Emperor. One's imposing manner must not be lost. All right, Mother Emperor. The two of them were panting, not even sure what they were competing about. The child's adorable appearance made Yuhua unable to put her down. Then, she happily started running errands. She now had a ton of things to do. Shanai still didn't believe she could do it and found it rather amusing. Until she opened her eyes again. You're awake. Your Highness the Princess. Shanai sleepily sat up. What are you talking about? The motion of rubbing her eyes froze. The next second, her eyeballs were about to pop out. Unbelievable. What did they do again while she was sleeping? Beside her, Shisha appeared. This is the Eastern Palace, Your Highness the Princess. So this princess was referring to her? Shuyan looked even more gratified and sighed. That it feels like only yesterday that you entered the palace in your wedding attire. I didn't expect this to be so sudden. Congratulations, Your Highness Princess Kangxi. Shanai, feeling no joy at all, was secretly analyzing the situation. But Shisha gave her no chance to think, pulling off her clothes in one go. All right, Your Highness. You have a lot to do today. No way. Is this development really okay? Did none of the ministers object? She's from the Rulon family. Indeed. How could no one object? Since no one objects, then it is decided. I believe you all will also love my adorable Shanai. It was just that in the face of such a happy empress, no one dared to make a sound. Furthermore, Her Majesty, fearing that Shanai would be wronged, demanded that the investiture ceremony must be a grand affair. But right now, Shanai had no mind to consider whether she was wronged or not, to actually wake up and become a princess. She couldn't figure it out and didn't plan to think about it anymore. But wait, does this mean she has to be educated as the heir to the throne? When Shanai pushed open the door, she found that the maids in charge of clothing were already waiting there. Your Highness the Princess, you've arrived. We will do our utmost to create the first Yalan ceremonial robe for your Highness the Princess. Oh my goodness, Shisha held up a piece of cloth and exclaimed. Who would have thought that our lady would suddenly be named a princess? Isn't that right? Another maid said excitedly, and she was named right before the Yalan festival. Everyone was already incredibly busy. Shanai rested her head on the table, looking at them with some helplessness. Although they were complaining, they were more excited than I, the person involved. It's probably because I have no interest in the Yalan festival. Everyone else is so busy. I'm the only one who's bored to death. Thinking this, Shanai looked up and carefully examined herself in the mirror. Looking at it this way, I realize I'm indeed quite young. Maybe even younger than Guiyan. And Shanai looks a lot like I did when I was little. I feel like I've gone back to my childhood. If I were someone born and raised in this world, perhaps my current situation would be quite good for me. Hearing Yuhua say, "I'll be your mother," might have even moved me to tears. Unfortunately, I'm an adult who has transmigrated into the body of an 8-year-old child. The Emperor and I are not that far apart in age. How could I possibly see her as a mother? Malanai is one thing, but Jialan and Yuhua don't act like adults at all. Does this mean I'll have to call them mom and dad from now on? If my expression could be a little more mature, maybe they wouldn't treat me so much like child. Let me try to put on a dignified expression. Dignified my ass. No wonder they treat me like a baby. Your Highness, between purple and gold, which do you prefer? Shisha came over with 2 pieces of cloth and asked. Both of these colors are symbols of the imperial family, so they are very precious. But Her Majesty said that when making your ceremonial robe, there is no need to be stingy at all. Shanai looked at the cloth, thought for a moment, and said, I prefer purple, but I don't know much about clothes, so I'll leave it to the person in charge of garments to decide. All right, then what do you think we should choose for the accessories on the dress? Flowers or butterflies? A floral pattern would look very nice. But when your Highness moves, won't these things dangling around be a bit inconvenient? Accessories. Shanai caught the key information. Do I have to wear a wig? I can tolerate other things, but I absolutely refuse to wear a wig. I'd rather have a pineapple on my head than wear that thing to— Oh, look at my memory, the little maid said as she hurriedly ran to find it. Her Majesty gave you a top quality item. The little maid brought over a box. She opened it, and inside was a dragon head hairpin. Shanai picked it up and examined it carefully. This is an accessory that can only be used by members of the imperial family who have been granted the surname Yalan. The ruby pearl on the hairpin is the largest one besides Her Majesty's. It's so dazzling. Shuyin, standing to the side, also spoke up at tea first. When I heard the investiture ceremony was going to be postponed, I was very worried. Now that I see this, I feel much more at ease. Oh, Shisha said. Why are you so pessimistic? Although your Highness's investiture was sudden, your Highness has already moved into the Eastern Palace, and Her Majesty has even bestowed a title. That's right. Shanai looked at the golden hairpin in her hand again. She even bestowed a title upon me. Shanai, from now on, you're Princess Kangxi. May you have health, peace, joy, and happiness. Why isn't there the character for flower in my title? Shanai asked, puzzled. Yuhua asked, puzzled. Because the palaces in the court, as well as the animals and concubines you favor, all have the character for flower in their names, Shanai said. Our princess is truly brilliant, Yuhua said as she walked over to Shanai, resting her forehead against hers. Because it doesn't matter if you are not as beautiful as a flower. I only wish for you to have health, peace, joy, and happiness. How is it? Do you like this title? Shanya's heart suddenly trembled. My name, Shanai, means mountains in the dark night. It was probably just 2 characters chosen at random when I was named. I was clearly an uncared for child, but she put so much thought into giving me a name. I never thought the feeling of being cared for could be this good. Anyway, Shuyin continued, when we dress your Highness, we must highlight this hairpin so that no one could say our princess's status is not legitimate. That makes sense, The little maid quickly agreed that we will make it so that people can see the hairpin on your head from far away. Legitimate. Shanai was somewhat dazed. If Qiying knew his daughter had become a princess, he would probably jump for joy. As for Yuhua, she would probably jump for joy just because she's happy. The scene would definitely be quite a sight. Wait, Shanai suddenly realized something. Speaking of which, I could have been a harmless little concubine, living my own little life. But what about after becoming a princess? A sudden sense of foreboding washed over her. Do I have to receive the education of an heir? I thought that after becoming a princess, I wouldn't have to attend the court meetings. Damn it, I was planning to eat, drink, and be merry before the Yalan festival. But that wonderful plan has instantly turned to dust. At the meeting, Yuhua continued, "All right, let's move on to the next matter. Your Majesty, a letter has arrived from my maternal family." Bai Yin said, kneeling. "I asked it about the north again?" Yuhua asked, "You don't need to present the letter." "Your Majesty," Bai Yin began with a troubled expression, "just preparing for the Yalan festival has already exceeded the National Treasury's budget. Plus, this is a year of famine. To support the granaries in various regions, we are already stretched thin. We can no longer send grain to the north." Yuhua heard this and said his words were reasonable. But Bai Yin continued, "My father also gave it much thought before sending this letter. If your Majesty does not show mercy, all the people in the north will starve to death. I implore your Majesty to show compassion." It seems the situation in the north is very grim, Shanai thought to herself. Is there a divine power that can make the land fertile? Although I really want to ask, the current atmosphere doesn't seem right for it. If there's no grain in the granaries to supply the north, then can't we just increase the harvest in the central regions? Can't we just dispatch officials from the Ministry of Works to make the land fertile? Consort Hua, Xiao In asked. Hearing this, Shanai couldn't help but ridicule her in her mind. Her words are like saying, if you master language and math, you're guaranteed to get into a top university. But she's not wrong. Speaking of which, I always feel she's very eye-catching. Although there are few female concubines in the palace, I don't think that's the reason. But there isn't enough water for irrigation. How do we solve that? Yuhua asked. Then we must ask the Shuiyuan family to show great mercy. What do you think? Xiao In shrugged. We have to think twice before using every drop of rain. How can that be accomplished by the power of mere mortals? The head of the Shuiyuan family retorted, his face flushed. Even if the founder of the Shuiyuan family, who granted us our divine power, were to personally appear, it would be impossible. Xiao In said, I'm indeed not clear on how your family uses its divine power. I just remember the matter of the previous head of the Han family making it hail for 3 days in the Shanyu region. So I was just asking. But the head of the Shuiyuan family looked displeased. Shanai, while eating snacks, listened to their argument. She's mocking the Shuiyuan family for being a vassal of the Han family, and that their power is inferior to the Han family's. The sound of their argument is getting louder. Are they going to start a fight? The Shilua kingdom unified the entire eastern continent, so its territory is vast. But the proportion of fertile land is extremely small. In addition, their technology is far behind that of Earth. The desolate north is often plagued by famine. They plant their grain by transplanting seedlings, so they are heavily dependent on rainfall. Because if there is no rain, the rice paddies would dry up. The two continued to argue. Then just put the water mice in one place. If we do that, the water will disappear with the slightest negligence. Then you'll have to wait until the soil has absorbed the water. Do you have any idea how big Shilua is? Are you trying to push all that responsibility onto me? But can't we just use another method? After thinking for a moment, Shanai mustered her courage and raised her hand, saying, but no one in the room paid her any attention. This made her a little embarrassed. Shanai intended to speak again. Unexpectedly, this time Jialan stood up and shouted angrily, Hey, shut up, you two. Can't you see Her Highness the Princess has something to say? The two who were just arguing instantly fell silent. The room fell into a deathly quiet. The effect shocked Shanai. She looked at Jialan, wanting to cry, but having no tears. I really have to thank you for this. I really don't want to attract attention. Thanks a lot. I really want to chop off that thumbs up you're giving me. Otherwise, it wouldn't be enough to express my gratitude. Ahem, Shanai cleared her throat and said, we can just increase the cultivation of famine relief crops. How about that? If there's no rice, we can just eat potatoes and sweet potatoes. They require less water to grow and are also cold resistant. As she finished speaking, The entire hall was silent. So Shanai continued, for example, potatoes and sweet potatoes. They can grow in the barren and cold north, and eating just one can fill you up. The hall was still very quiet. This made Shanai a little worried. What's going on? Why isn't anyone talking? Your Highness, may I ask what these magical crops you speak of are? Bayan asked with a puzzled expression that if such crops really exist, please be sure to tell me. Now it was Shanya's turn to be puzzled. He doesn't know what potatoes and sweet potatoes are. Are they not called potatoes and sweet potatoes here? So she explained, it's a plant whose root can be used as a staple food, and its stems and leaves can be used in salads. It can be boiled or roasted. The hall fell silent once again. They really don't know. Say something, you guys. Yuhua couldn't help but laugh out loud. The princess truly has fantastic ideas. Our Shilua kingdom has a boundless future. It's still early. The princess could have continued to sleep peacefully, Xiao said mockingly. Yet she insisted on attending the meeting without being fully awake. How well-behaved and sensible. What? Shana was completely baffled. Then she heard others chiming in. It seems the princess is still young, so her ideas are quite whimsical. Yes, huh? Her Highness the Princess is so creative. Shanai finally understood what they meant. They want me to shut up and go to sleep if I don't know anything? As if anyone want to come here. Fine, I'll just sit here and eat this mountain of snacks. You just want to see me shut up like this, right? Consort Hua, Malanai, suddenly spoke up and asked, how old are you this year? Replying to your Highness. Xiao answered, I am 22 this year, which means, Malanai said coldly, you are 14 years older than the princess. So, when you're instructing the princess, shouldn't you be a bit gentler? The princess is still young, isn't she? Xiaoan was rebuked and left speechless, so she could only obediently shut up. Awesome. Shanai couldn't help but praise her in her mind. You, the oldest person in the room, are quite reliable at times like this. You people should take good care of the nation's flower, okay? But once it got quiet, I started to get sleepy. Is it because I ate too many snacks? Just as she was dozing off, Yuhua's furious voice suddenly rang out. Consort Hua. It startled her awake. What's going on? Shana was a bit flustered. Yuhua is angry. Her voice sounded a bit scary. Although she is gentle with people, in essence, she is a cold-blooded creature who places great importance on rules. Consort Hua's earlier remarks might have made her seem very unruly. I feel like if I don't stop her, things will get very bad. Just then, Riliu from behind her scooped her up and asked, Oh, is our princess getting sleepy? It's time for the princess's nap. Please forgive us, your majesty. All right, Yuhua nodded. You may be excused. Thank you for your hard work. Princess Kangxi obeys. Riliu started running with Shanai in his arms. Riliu, Shanai shouted. Wait, don't run yet. You brat, wait for me. Are you pretending you can't hear me? You idiot shadow guard. Forget it, I don't care anymore. Consort Hua, you're on your own. After all, you brought this on yourself. After running some distance, Shanai spoke again. Riliu put me down. I want to be alone for a while. King Yu and Shu Yin follow me from behind. This time, Riliu listened and obediently put Shanai down. Yes, your highness. If you need anything, please call us anytime. Shu Yin instructed. Thank you. Shanai said, I really didn't expect that there are no famine relief crops here. Shanai thought to herself, now that I think about it, those foods never appeared in previous meals. Could be that here, as she was lost in thought, someone shouted, Little Jian of Shanai. Oh my God. Looking at the teary-eyed person in front of her, Shanai was at a loss for a moment. Who is he? Before she could react, the person knelt down and hugged Shanai, saying, Thank the gods and Buddhas. Who is he? Shanai still couldn't remember who he was. Do you remember me? The person continued to ask that I am the one who served you before you entered the palace. You have no idea how worried I was about you. He's really crying. What should I do? I can't remember this person at all. Shanai was in a difficult position, but I didn't completely inherit Shanya's original memories. Could it be that before I transmigrated, he was really good at Shanai? If he's not here on Qi Ying's orders, but because he was worried about Shanai and snuck into the palace on his own, that means I can have one more person on my side. Just as she was thinking this, the other person suddenly said, The Prime Minister has been very concerned about you. Shanya's expression changed instantly. My mood instantly plummeted to rock bottom. After returning to the palace, Shanai threw herself onto the bed. Your Highness, Shisha shouted, you haven't changed your clothes yet. How can you just lie down like that? Shanai just covered her ears that I'm not listening, it's all nonsense. Cheating. I was just wondering why he hadn't made a move recently. His sudden dispatch of someone is probably because I was made a princess. A discarded pawn actually became the emperor's heir. It would be strange if he didn't come looking for me. He is the main culprit behind Shanya's death, and also the mastermind who drove a wedge between Shanai and the other concubines, making them fight each other. In the original story, as soon as Shanai started to gain some standing in the palace, Qi came to find Shanai, crying, "Shanai, it was my fault as a father for not being good to you. Now I've come to see you. They're also Her Majesty's concubines, just like you. How can they stop us, a father and daughter, from meeting? How can they bully us like this?" Even towards Shanai, his pawn, he was very diligent, because he was afraid that Shanai would build her own power base in the palace. He often used the excuse of a father-daughter reunion to see Shanai and express his fatherly affection. If the Shanai in the original story had even once seen the contempt in Qi Ying's eyes, she probably wouldn't have fallen into this trap of familial affection. Thanks to Qi Ying's acting, the outside world thought they were a deeply affectionate father and daughter. Fortunately, Qi Ying doesn't know that his daughter is no longer the previous Shanai. Otherwise, if I showed even a hint of disrespect towards him, I would probably become a corpse immediately. How can I get rid of this cancer? Qi Ying, his psychic power is practically an all-powerful ability. Dealing with me would be as easy as crushing an ant for him. His psychic power can part seas and move mountains. If he wanted to, he could even destroy the imperial palace and kill Yuhua instantly. But the reason he hasn't done so, and has instead chosen a complicated and troublesome method, is probably because Yuhua is beloved by everyone. Or is he also influenced by Yuhua's divine power? In any case, with my power, I can't shake off Qi Ying. Right now, I can't escape his grasp at all. As she was thinking, she was suddenly hugged by Shisha. Shanai said with great helplessness, "Why do I feel like you all don't treat me as her master anymore?" "Oh, how could that be?" Shisha said. "The person I fear most in the world is you. But I'm too lazy to change in my night clothes. You don't have to move. We'll help you change." After changing, Shanai lay back down. But no matter how much I think about it, I can't find a way to get rid of Qi Ying. Maybe I should just forget about saving face and directly ask for help later. After all, my current situation is 100 times better than the original Shanya's. He must want to support me, the princess, to become the emperor, and then control the court himself. Before that, he will approach me step by step. This also gives me time to think of a countermeasure. Speaking of which, I wonder if the meeting is over. If I'm not mistaken, a guest should be arriving soon. Because if someone insults the person Yuhua holds dear, Yuhua will make that person come and apologize in person. He should be here soon. But thinking about it is really ridiculous. In this world, famine relief crops have become a joke. I really didn't expect that. After all, potatoes and sweet potatoes seem to be imports from the bicontinent. If they haven't spread to the Shiloah kingdom yet, it would make sense. If this world really has famines because there are no relief crops, then can't we just have the nobles open their granaries for relief? No, if Yuhua said that, the 7 great founding families would definitely object. If they unite, even Yuhua, the emperor, can't do anything about them. After all, the emperor's divine power has no offensive capabilities. So for her to make enemies of the other nobles is really dangerous. If the imperial family's divine power is exposed, someone might even rebel. I'm really not suited to be emperor. Not that I want to be. Why did the founding ancestor Long do this? He is the origin of all divine powers, possessing infinite divine strength. But he only gave his blessed one this kind of ability. The ability to be loved by all. What's the use of this ability? What a strange dragon. It caused Yuhua to lack strength, forcing her to be mindful of the noble's moods. Just as she was thinking, Shisha came to report, "Your Highness, a guest has arrived." "Who is it?" Shanai asked. Actually, there was no need to ask, Shanai thought to herself. Everything is as I expected. The one who came was Consort Hua. Shaoan picked up the teacup, sniffed it, and said, "This tea smells nice." Then she added, "The tea set is also very beautiful." "Thank you for the compliment," Shanai said, completely exasperated. She's been dawdling here for half an hour. Is she planning to drag this out until sunset? Wien has been standing there motionless, covered in dust. If this goes on, on? Is he going to turn into a statue? Finally, Shanai couldn't take it anymore. She got straight to the point and asked, "Are you here to apologize?" Xiaoan spat out a mouthful of tea. "Did Her Majesty order you to apologize?" Shanai continued to ask. "The noble consort and consort Xian probably criticize you a bit too, right?" What's with this person? Xiaoan was trembling all over. "My God, this is absurd." "In that case, let's introduce Consort Hua, Xiaoan." Xiaoan, Rumian, is the only daughter of the powerful and influential Rumian family. The Rumian family's divine power is seduction. Therefore, she had long been accustomed to a life in the spotlight. Rumian grew up surrounded by the love and praise of others, and she herself was immersed in it, unable to extricate herself. "Xiao and Rumian, you're so perfect. How are others supposed to live?" Later, because she was so outstanding, she was chosen to enter the palace to be the crown prince's companion. At that time, she still thought the world would forever revolve around her. But life in the palace gave her a harsh slap in the face. "Wow, Your Highness, you look so handsome today, too." "Your Highness, how did you memorize such difficult things? If only I were half as excellent as you." "Your Highness, how can you be so perfect?" "As expected of Your Highness, truly amazing." These words of praise were extremely grating to Xiaoan's ears. Compared to that foolish prince, I'm clearly more outstanding in every way. But what on earth is going on? Move aside. She angrily walked up to Yuhua, who was still the crown prince, and questioned loudly, "Your Highness the Crown Prince, you have bewitched everyone. Living amidst everyone's praise, are you very happy? You are admired not because you are more outstanding than me. They're just bewitched by your fair face and smooth talk." But Yuhua, instead of getting angry, praised her well. "You're so smart." Xiaoan blushed a little at the comment, "that I've always been smart, okay? The foolish one is you, Your Highness." Yuhua continued to smile. "You seem to be right. What's going on?" Xiaoan felt a little unnerved. What is she smiling about? 3 days later, the emperor's edict was delivered to the Rumian residence. It stated, "I don't want to." Xiaoan shouted, "I don't want to be a concubine. It's just a minor concubine, not a noble consort or an empress. I want to be the head of the family. I will absolutely not enter the palace." "It's useless no matter how much you protest," Suya said very seriously. "We can't defy an imperial edict, can we?" Just as she was speaking, Yuhua walked in with a group of people. "Your Highness the Crown Prince, what brings you here?" The mother and daughter were both shocked. Yuhua didn't answer, but walked to Xiaoan and knelt on one knee. This action startled everyone else. The Crown Prince actually knelt on one knee. "You don't want to be my concubine, is that right?" Yuhua asked. "That's right, I don't want to." Xiaoan answered loudly that "I don't want to wither away in the harem. I want to become the head of the Rumian family and live a glorious life. If you want to take a concubine, go find a lady from another family. I will make you more powerful than the head of the family. So stop making a fuss," Yuhua said. She took out a package and handed it to Xiaoan, saying, "Here, open it and see." After opening it, Xiaoan said disdainfully, "Isn't this just a slightly larger black pearl? Just this kind of thing? I have a whole bunch of them too." Then she heard Yuhua say, "I will give you the sea that produces this kind of black pearl." As soon as she finished speaking, Xiaoan grabbed her hand and asked, "Then can you grant me the title of Consort Hua?" Yuhua immediately agreed, "All right." And just like that, Xiaoan Rumian became Xiaoan Yalan. Although she didn't get a husband she loved, she got a monarch to whom she could dedicate her life. Although she didn't become the head of her family, she became the right-hand woman of the emperor who could command the world. It could be considered a perfect life with nothing more to ask for. Time flew by, and the youngest daughter of the Rilon family was also sent into the palace as a concubine. Their family had tried every means to avoid sending someone, but in the end, they compromised. But to send such a little girl, I really don't know what they were thinking. I heard that the noble consort and consort Xian often visit her, but they probably aren't going to form an alliance. So I don't need to pay them too much attention. That's what Xiaoan originally thought. But Yuhua made a surprisingly unexpected decision that I want to name consort Xiao Princess. Xiaoan couldn't believe her ears. Name who is what? Qiying was overjoyed upon hearing this, and why daughter has many shortcomings. To receive Her Majesty's favor is the greatest honor for our Rulon family. That old fox. Fate is truly ironic. Why did heaven go to such lengths to make the emperor a fool? Xiaoan was incredibly frustrated. That little girl is clearly a pawn of the Rulon family. Not only is Her Majesty bewitched by that little girl, but she's also making her heir. The above is the life story of Xiaoan Yalan. Her Majesty just named that little girl a princess a few days ago, and today she's giving me a hard time for her sake. Go and apologize to Shanai. Yuhua ordered. But Your Majesty, Xiaoen wanted to argue. The court meeting is not a place for children to play. But she was ruthlessly cut off by Yuhua. Enough, Xiaoen. For the sake of our friendship, I won't punish you today. Do I have to punish you with the strict laws of the imperial family before you'll go and apologize? But that's true. Xiaoen was utterly helpless. How can I, a mere concubine, criticize a princess? So I decided to swallow my anger and go apologize. But why are these damn concubines blocking my way? Do they think I'm going to kill the princess? These people usually only care about fighting for favor and ignore everything else. But today they're all ganging up, telling me not to bully the princess. How absurd. What kind of sorcery has that little girl cast in the palace? Stop! Xiaoen shouted impatiently. Forget it. No matter how capable she is, she's just an 8-year-old child. I am the one who never retreats from battle and is victorious in 100 fights. Xiaoen, bring it on. Before I go to the Eastern Palace, I'll use you all for practice. A short while later, at the Eastern Palace, they're not willing to do this. And they're not willing to do that. Xiaoen was burning with anger. I really don't understand if they're ever going to get things done. Shanai heard this and said, it seems that other people's abilities are far inferior to yours. That's also possible. Xiaoen couldn't deny her point. But if one has shortcomings, shouldn't one work harder? Anyway, even trying, but using divine power to make it rain is already difficult, isn't it? Shanai asked. Yes, Xiaoen calmed down. It is indeed difficult. But then her tone changed. However, there are precedents, so it's not entirely impossible. If he really can't do it, he can also stay there to irrigate during the busy farming season. Then why didn't you say all this? Shanai asked, puzzled. Xiaoen said in a frenzy, because I know they just want to stay under Her Majesty's nose, so they stay in the palace and don't move. Even if I said it, they would rack their brains to find excuses to refuse. You've really had it tough, Shanai said. Have some snacks and tea to cool off. Then thank you very much, Xiaoen said. But the moment she picked up a snack, Xiaoen froze. What am I doing right now? Seeing her in this state, Shanai took a sip of tea. Shoot, has she already noticed something is wrong? I was hoping to just muddle through like this. I didn't expect her to come to her senses so quickly.